This is by far the worst story I've ever covered. So I got in contact with a Mexican law enforcement source who told me that in Juárez, Mexico, young, vulnerable women are being kidnapped towards the end of their pregnancies, held at a trap house, and then their babies are being taken out of them to then sell these infants to Americans in El Paso. There's a lot of desert and barren land, and you know how that goes. Dozens of victims. What I've been told is that CJNG Cartel is running this operation. These guys have managed to absorb power at a rate that we've never really seen before. But I never really got into the nitty-gritty of how evil this cartel is. So
I'm used to seeing insanely sick shit. This is a whole nother level. Katarina Szulc back for round 3, kind of an emergency podcast here. You've covered like 40 stories.
Yeah, but in this case,
I'm here at the Port of Vancouver, a hotspot for...
Hey guys, if you're not subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and hit that like button on the video. And if you don't have time to watch this episode right now, no problem, but I'd really appreciate it if you would save it to your watch later playlist. Finally, if you'd like to follow me on Instagram and X, those links are in my description below. Thank you. Katarina Szulc back for round 3.
Yeah.
Kind of an emergency podcast here. You've covered, by the way, like 40 stories since we sat down at the beginning of June. So
it's been nonstop.
There's a lot to talk about. You're doing a great job with your show over on Ironclad. I don't know if that other stuff you can talk about yet in the future.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so
yeah.
we'll talk about that too. You have some cool stuff coming up that you're going to be doing. But you just broke a story that like stopped me in my tracks because
You clocked it right away.
oh my god, it is. I mean, I'm used to seeing insanely sick shit with the cartel. Even for the low lifes that they are, this is a whole nother level. So let's just start at the beginning.
Yeah.
The basis of what the story is and how you found out and what you found out since.
Okay, this is by far the worst story I've ever covered. So basically, I got in contact with a Mexican law enforcement source who told me basically right off the bat that women, young, vulnerable women in Juárez, Mexico, which is right there along the El Paso border, are being kidnapped towards the end of their pregnancies, held at like a trap house, essentially, and then their babies are being taken out of them by like rudimentary cesarean section by what is believed to be a certified OBGYN who's performing these operations to then sell these infants to Americans in El Paso.
Do the Americans know what they're buying?
So this is the problem, right? Because when I got this information, and it was from a very reputable source, and I corroborated before I even put the story out there, because when I got this and I saw the images and I was reading all the details and listening to all the details, I was like, holy f***, this is the worst thing that I've ever heard. And you know, like, we see cartel violence and I'm covering it constantly, but this was a new low. And so when I got all the information, my first question was, who are the buyers? And do they know what's happening and why are they buying these kids? Like, is it illegal adoption? Is it human trafficking? How much are they buying the babies for? And do they know that these babies are being taken from the mothers in cold blood?
Buying babies at the beginning, regardless of what the f*** are you doing?
Well, here's the thing. If it's illegal adoption, like, and okay, let's say ideally that the buyers are people who are dying to be parents and they are under the impression that they're going through some private small adoption firm based out of Mexico. I don't believe this to be the case. Stefano at All Source News, him and I sort of made a bet because he believes that this is the case. I don't think so.
No shot.
But let's say in an ideal world, that's what's happening, is that these are parents who are like, oh, we've secured a baby. We want to build a family. First of all, I think if you are getting a baby like through illegal, like if you believe that this is legitimate, you should not be a parent in the first place because
Agreed.
demented do you have to be to not see through this? Second of all, even if you have a fishy feeling that maybe something is up, again, you should not be a parent, because how selfish can you be to take a baby from a woman who died because she was kidnapped for this baby? So what I've been told is that CJNG is running this operation.
For people out there who aren't familiar.
Jalisco New Generation Cartel, which is the most expansionist and powerful cartel and violent cartel in all of Mexico. And I would say in Mexican cartel history, like, these guys have managed to absorb power at a rate that we've never really seen before, to be honest. And since their uprising, they have shown and proven just how violent they can be, even towards innocent people. There doesn't seem to really be a code. And when I've done a lot of reporting on CJNG, and I've always spoken about how they're very powerful, they're very violent, and they're very intelligent. And the leadership seems to be very intelligent because they know how to absorb cartels or smaller mafias and gangs within Mexico, or like make an alliance like they did with the Chapitos recently.
Define absorb, by the way, like outside of making alliances, like what else could that mean?
Basically, you go into a region where maybe the resources for the local cartel or mafia or gang aren't super strong. You tell them, we're going to put our guys in. You guys are still going to make money. But essentially, this is CJNG territory. You guys can use our name, which a lot of these smaller mafias and gangs like to do, because it gives them kind of like a backbone. Yeah, it gives them power. So it's like, we're 4 letters. We're CJNG now, even if they're not technically CJNG. But that's how the absorption kind of starts, right? And so I'm being told that this is run by CJNG. And like I was saying, I've always, in my reporting, talked about how powerful they are and their power dynamic in Mexico. But I never really got into the nitty-gritty of just how evil this cartel is. That's for a multitude of reasons. The first one being because I don't want to get murdered by them, and they don't seem to have a code of ethics. Like, women are dying. I mean, you guys laugh, but let's talk about mob history. It used to be like no women and kids, right?
This is a whole. This isn't mob. This is demented
terrorism.
I think it's like beyond that. Even they're a business too. Like it's like.
It's like a Fortune 500.
I don't know what's worse, but you know what I mean. Like it's sick. They're sending fentanyl across the border to us. They're apparently doing whatever it's just
the
like
babies. Okay, so this is another thing, right? If we compare it to fentanyl, when I interview cartel members and when we talk about this, a lot of them believe and say, well, I'm not directly killing these Americans who are using fentanyl. I'm just providing a product that there's an insatiable appetite for. In this case, they don't have that excuse. Like, you are literally holding a woman captive. And keep in mind, I'm told that these victims, now this has only been going on for a couple months, only, as in like, you know, but that's horrible that it's already been going on for that long. There's dozens of victims. I'm told it's less than 100.
How do you know this?
Because I was told by a source in law enforcement.
So they knew. The better question is,
there's an investigation going on.
It was only a couple months ago. How did they know it wasn't happening before that?
Because that's when this got flagged. And it appears as though these babies are being taken across the border with fraudulent paperwork. And so this is how authorities sort of became aware of it. The crazy part is they didn't become aware of it because, oh, pregnant women are going missing and turning up dead. You would think that that should be enough of a motive to launch an investigation. Unfortunately, in Juárez, there's been a crisis of missing and murdered women since the 1990s. I think it started in like 1993 was like the first like big headlining case of a young woman who turned up dead. And over the course of the last couple decades, it's been like, is there a serial killer or serial killers in Juárez? Or why is the femicide so bad? And I know people get triggered when I say femicide, but it's like, if innocent women are being killed simply on the basis that they're a woman or that they're pregnant, you can take the baby. That is femicide. Like,
of course.
Get wrecked.
Of course.
So, and it's vulnerable. Like, you're telling me that a 17-year-old pregnant girl is going to be able to defend herself against a couple armed guys who come up and are like, you're going to give us your baby? Come on. So basically, this operation is full-fledged, and it's CJNG, and they're obviously working with elements of La Línea or the Juárez cartel.
Do we know what kind of money is exchanging hands, or
It's like in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, because essentially these babies are making up for the gap of the lack of drug and human smuggling from Mexico into the United States.
because the border's more secure now?
Yes.
But now we can get babies across the border.
So this is a thing that I want to bring up because
Yeah.
I think it's really critical to talk about the fact that everyone is so concerned about securing the border. And obviously I've talked about that in my reporting too. But this is where the whole argument comes in of, well, what if we just decriminalize drugs, or, you know, we just secure the border, it stops. These guys will always find a way to make money. And when this administration first was like, we're going to lock down on the border, I was under the impression that extortion would go up, crude oil theft, trafficking would go up, and also the agricultural shit that we've talked about, right? I was not expecting this to be the way that they were going to fill that financial gap.
You said hundreds of thousands of dollars per
Baby.
So these
Americans are not, they're well off. And that's why it's very hard for me to believe that these people do not know
where it's coming from.
where it's coming from. And, you know, I feel bad that, okay, so I reported this story with the bare bones information that I had, okay?
What's your reaction when you get that phone call? Are you like, F you, no way, at first?
At first, yeah, I didn't believe it. Well, it's not that I didn't believe it. At first, I was like, you know, I'm on the fence. Because that's typically how I am when I get these types of tips, especially because there's a lot of bullshit that people will try to send my way. And I'm at a point now where I typically can weed out the bullshit pretty quick. And so when I first got it, I was like, I don't know. And then I talked to multiple sources who could corroborate this. And everyone was like, yeah, this is happening. And
I obviously don't give away your sources, but like, are you getting people that are on the ground in Juárez? Are you getting other law enforcement officials? How are you triangulating that without revealing?
Yeah, I don't want to say that because I really can't reveal this source whatsoever. It goes really high up.
Okay.
On both sides of the border. We'll just leave it at that.
Okay, that's good.
Because, okay, and why, right? And I know that people are going to ask this because then people always say, like, your sources, trust me, bro. Here's the thing. With this type of coverage, there are real life implications, okay? This is a real investigation. These are real young women who are dying and real infants who are being trafficked. So, yeah, I'm a journalist, but I'm also human. So at the end of the day, I want to see justice for these women, and I want to see an end to this.
There's a lot to think about when you're shopping for a new mattress. Your budget, your sleeping style, where do you even start? Luckily, GhostBed is here to help. GhostBed's redesigned mattress quiz cuts through all the noise and gives you a clear, reliable recommendation for the mattress that will help you get the best sleep. Answer a few questions about yourself, and you can get your recommendation in just a few minutes. You can even take the quiz with your partner. So instead of debating about who's right, you can find a bed that works for both of you. GhostBed is a family-owned company backed by over 20 years of mattress expertise. Every mattress is built with cooling features to keep you comfortable all night and made to last with a 20 to 25-year warranty. And the value is undeniable. GhostBed mattresses cost up to 50% less than comparable brands. On top of that, you get a 101-night sleep trial and fast, free shipping. Most orders arrive in 2 to 5 days, so you could be sleeping better by next week. Right now, as a Julian Dorey listener, you can get 25% off your order for a limited time. Just go to ghostbed.com/Julian and use promo code Julian at checkout. That link is in the description below. That's ghostbed.com/Julian, promo code Julian. Upgrade your sleep with GhostBed, the makers of the coolest beds in the world. Some exclusions apply. See site for details.
So I won't say anything if that means compromising the investigation, even if that means that, oh, maybe the audience will trust me more, I can reveal more information. I don't care because I don't want this to happen.
That's how you gotta be.
in this type of coverage, it's very sensitive because, like you said, when I get this tip, at first it's like, okay, let me really look into it. Once I corroborated it with the people that I did, I was like, I was very sad, honestly, because I always put myself in the position of these women, and you and I have actually talked about this on the first episode when I covered things like this. It's like you think of it like being in that type of position and knowing that you can't get out and you're going to meet a death and there's literally no escape and you're going through whatever torture you're going through. And I cannot fathom what that would feel like. And then on top of that, being pregnant and being so young. It's like, from what I've heard, when you're pregnant, you're like mother bear mode, right? Like you have to protect, it's biological. And so imagine being held captive for your unborn baby and knowing like there is nothing you can do about it. And then being in Juárez where you know no one is coming to look for you. And then on top of that, knowing that after all is said and done, there may not even be an investigation into what happened to you or where your baby ends up.
Have any obviously this is a new racket, as you've pointed out.
It is, yeah.
These are obviously very poor women who are being targeted,
they're all
right?
from poor neighborhoods,
Okay.
and they all come from low socioeconomic backgrounds.
So have any families of victims made any attempts?
No. And I didn't expect them to, and they won't. There's a major fear of retaliation, and there's also just a lack of even understanding of how to go about this. Imagine growing up in an environment where you are so used to seeing injustices, and then something this severe happens to you. I think that a lot of these people are just completely disincentivized from even trying to seek justice because they know that if anything, it will just result in further injustice. Like you see these mothers who go looking for their missing children and then they end up dead. Then what? And then no one's investigating them. Now you have 2 dead or missing people and no one to look for them. So, and then if you're coming from a low socioeconomic background, and when we're talking about poor, like I don't know if that's politically correct, I don't care. When we're talking about poor here, like these women are like, they do not have anything, which is why they are the perfect targets for this.
Yeah, of course.
Because
and they're young.
They're young. A lot of them, I'm under the impression that a lot of them are like single mothers, right? So like they're pregnant, there's no like father figure in that picture.
I wonder, maybe I'm totally off base here, and I don't even know if you would have any access to be able to even get this information.
Yeah.
I wonder if some of these girls are getting pregnant at the hands of guys who are in the cartel. And then they're like, oh, I don't want this kid.
No. So actually one of my questions was, are these girls like going out with the people who are running this operation? And also, are some of these girls saying, I'll give you my baby for money, and they don't know that they're going to die, right? That doesn't appear to be the case.
On what? How were you able to rule that out? If you can't answer that, no problem.
It's part of the investigation that these women are being kidnapped against their will. The babies are being taken against their will, and the women are ending up dead and their bodies dumped with literally, this is so graphic. And this is what killed me. Like,
we have to tell these stories because people need to understand what is happening here.
They're literally being dumped, like completely cut open. So the way that the babies are being removed, the babies are surviving. And of course, because the babies are the product here in this operation, right? So there's an OBGYN, but there is no medical care for the mother, obviously, because I think also the goal is to kill her. But it's so rudimentary, the way that they're performing these surgeries.
And a pro's doing it, but it's still rudimentary.
Oh, because it's like, hurry the fuck up, get the baby out, make sure the baby's alive, and we're going to kill her anyways. So if you really, like, if we're thinking about this, like, really black and white, that woman is, like, the vessel for the product. It doesn't matter that when their bodies are found, their guts are literally hanging out, and it's just, like, battered, and they're being found, like, fully naked, just completely.
Have you seen this?
Yeah, and I wish that I haven't.
Yeah.
hadn't. It's like that where I don't know. It's different. I've seen a lot of violence, right? You see all the time, and being in Mexico, you see like bodies hanging, murdered bodies, and a lot of time men, or like women who were shot. But this is so different.
Yeah.
This is so evil. It's unlike anything I've ever seen before.
I don't really have
Because it's a perfect victim. That's what
perfect victim.
Yeah, like I've talked about this before. Like in the case of like Valeria Marquez, you know that TikToker who was shot on TikTok Live,
Yes.
and she was allegedly dating the guy who was a plaza boss for CJNG. Now a lot of people were like, well, that's what she gets for following the money and dating like a criminal. So in my opinion, I believe that people don't have to be perfect victims in order for us to have sympathy or compassion for what happened to them, and that they don't deserve that, right?
Yeah.
But in that case, she had ties to a criminal life, and there was a possibility that something could have happened to her. For these women, not the case.
Right.
Like they are simply existing, probably working a regular job, trying to get by, trying to help their families, fell pregnant, maybe like lack of sexual health education, or just, being in whatever relationship. We know how it works, pregnancy in poor communities, it's a thing. And then ending up in this situation. Like that's a perfect victim. So then when I'm seeing that and thinking just how helpless this girl thought, and most of them are younger than me.
Yeah. You've been talking about like 17 years
17, 19, 20, 21. That I can't imagine, like, if I think back at my 17-year-old self in my brain, first of all, being pregnant, but being in a scenario where it's like I'm trapped in some place with some unknown men, and I know they're going to kill me, and I'm freaking pregnant, and what are they going to do with my baby? What are they going to do to me? I cannot even imagine what that would be like.
Can we pull up, Joe, just a map of Juárez so people can also get bearings with where we're talking about? Have you been able to get information on where
The bodies are being done.
Well, I want to come back to that, but where specifically they're crossing the border?
It seems to be just through the regular border crossing from Juárez to El Paso. And so they have a team, or there are people part of this ring conducting this operation who are creating fraudulent documentation. So health records for the baby, adoption paperwork.
And they're just driving them across?
Yeah.
In suits?
I don't know exactly like how. But think of this, right? Human trafficking is one of the hardest, trafficking humans is one of the hardest things you could do. So there you go. That's Chihuahua.
Yeah, Joe has the map
And
up
Ciudad
now.
Juárez is right there, right under El Paso.
West Texas, and I guess that's New Mexico up there, right?
Mm-hmm. Anapra.
Okay. And how big is that's a pretty big area. That's a few hundred miles, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of obviously desert and barren land where they find a lot of clandestine graves.
Oh yeah.
It's honestly the perfect, and it's a border town, and you know how that goes.
So are they? Sorry, we're jumping around.
Yeah,
with
let
some
me
of
go
this.
back to finish that thought. So if you think about trafficking or smuggling, right? Humans is one of the most difficult things that you could possibly smuggle or traffic, because you have an identity, you have people who know you. There are so many components to. Yeah, they're living. It's completely different than trafficking a kidney or trafficking 20 kilos of cocaine.
Yeah. Put it in a
Easy.
coffee box.
Yeah. But a human is different. Now, think of an infant who's just born. The mother is not there, and it requires constant care, and in some cases, probably medical care. And
It's crying all the time, too, you know?
Well, I have a feeling that they're sedating the babies.
Come on.
How the fuck else? Yeah. Do you think
Is that even healthy to do to them at all?
buddy, you're asking about if this is healthy. Think about
No,
the operation that we're talking.
I understand that, but I would think half of them might over sedate. They might not even make it.
I think they're being super careful because this is the
Well, I'm
product.
glad they're being careful about that.
Oh my God.
You guys know
no.
we're not laughing because
Yeah.
it's funny. It's so fucked up.
It's just fucked up.
So I think, yeah, a lot of what they're doing to make their operation easier is probably not healthy or safe, but I think that they're doing what needs to be done in order for this baby to survive. At least survive until it gets into the hands of the buyer. Who, by the way, like, it doesn't seem like there is much attention on who are the buyers. And that's my first question, and that's what I want to know. And I'm sure that anyone watching, that's what we want to know. Because what differentiates this from any other cartel problem we talked about? Now, Americans are implicated. This is not just a Mexico problem. These are Americans who are fully implicated in cartel and funding cartel operations.
This almost seems, maybe I'm definitely thinking this way too oversimplified. So let's bring it back to reality when I say this. But like, yeah, they're making fake documentation for these kids and stuff. But can't you run like some data tracking set just to see like who was born in a U.S. hospital, and then suddenly if you see a family of means that has a child that's unaccounted for from a U.S. hospital, is that enough without violating constitutional rights to conduct an investigation?
So that's what we're all trying to figure out, because also there has to be some sort of legitimate adoption paperwork on the American side, right? Yeah. So how is that happening? But again, and this is why I'm sorry, like I'm giving bare bones on this, but had to break this because we know it's happening. The ins and outs of exactly how the operation is happening, again, I have bare bones with that. And of course, that's because it's an ongoing investigation and it's fairly new and it's really fucking tragic. So that's what I want to figure out. Who on the American side is implicated? How are these infants ending up there? Now, put the illegal adoption aspect to the side, right? If this is human trafficking, which I believe it is, then the paperwork doesn't have to go that far up the pipeline.
Why not?
Because these kids are not, well, first of all, this has only been going on for so long, so we can't even talk about like if they're going to school or whatever like that, right? But if they're being put into the hands of criminals who are going to use them for sex trafficking or...
well, yeah, in that case.
Or like infant organ harvesting.
Oh.
I know. It sounds fake. Like
No, it doesn't. That's the worst part. It doesn't sound fake at all.
I wish it did.
Infant organ harvesting.
This is what kills me, because the story is about babies.
You know, my friend Remy Adeleke had him on the podcast back in July 2023. I think I put those out in September 2023, but he's a Navy SEAL, former Navy SEAL, who's done a lot of work around the world on human trafficking, and he's also an actor and director. And he made a movie called Can we Google this? Remy Adeleke, human trafficking movie, The Unexpected, and it shows a backward chain of how organ harvesting happens. Mm-hmm. And it takes you from some wealthy couple, you know, at some hospital in Mexico with a doctor coming out and saying, your son took the heart, he's going to be okay. And they're like, oh, thank God. And it takes you all the way back to the beginning, to the person that came from. And I say this because, not that this makes it any better, but it was a full-blown adult who was taken, in this case, like it was a Yazidi from the war zone. He was telling the story as things really happened, like when they were part of a genocide back in the days when ISIS was coming up. Mm-hmm. But like, you're talking about that same thing, and I'm picturing all the scenes that he showed in graphic detail, which is important that he showed it in the movie. It's hard to watch, but people can watch on YouTube. You should. You know, and I'm thinking about that now with an infant, and somehow it makes it that much worse.
Worse, I know. It's because it's just like a complete innocent being.
Yeah, it's got no...
Completely defenseless. So it's like human nature to care for that, not do all of this. Yeah, this is the worst story, and I'm still digging for it. So I'm going to Juárez this week. We'll have been there by the time this goes out.
This is not coming out before. Are you worried about going there, considering that you've publicly talked about this story now?
Yeah, and actually last night, the structure of security, the police force, and sort of local government in Juárez shifted. Some people were let go, people who were very honest, and actually, like, if I had a problem, I likely could have called and said, hey, there's a problem, and they would have helped me out. That doesn't exist anymore.
Sorry, we just had one thing in there that couldn't be on camera, so we're back to what you were saying. What I was going to be asking you was, why aren't, obviously those people were just let go yesterday, but before then, where were they on this investigation? Like, if they're people
investigating it.
Okay, so meaning, all right, this gives me some hope in humanity, even though they just got let go. There are, within the police force, government, whatever, within Juárez,
diplomatic security, yes.
There are some people who really do care and are trying,
yes,
maybe they're
to
not your
dismantle
source,
this.
but they're trying to stop this.
Yes.
You may have heard of HelloFresh. They send chef-crafted recipes and fresh ingredients to your home. But this year, they made their biggest menu upgrade yet. This isn't the HelloFresh you remember. It's bigger. HelloFresh has doubled its menu. Now you can choose from 100 options each week, including new seasonal dishes and recipes from around the world. Dig into bigger portions that'll keep everyone satisfied. It's healthier. Feel great with an even healthier menu filled with high-protein and veggie-packed recipes. HelloFresh now helps you eat greener with new veggie pack recipes that have 2 or more veggies. And finally, it's tastier. Get steak and seafood recipes delivered every week for no extra cost. There's 3 times more seafood on the menu now. Again, at no extra cost. Discover new seasonal produce each week as well, from snap peas to stone fruit to corn on the cob and more. It's nice to be able to switch up my schedule with some nice high quality meals that I don't have to think about what I need to prepare them with. When I get a HelloFresh delivery, it's all right there, easy enough to put together, not time-consuming, very convenient. The best way to cook just got better. Go to HelloFresh.com/Julian10FM, that link is in the description below, to get 10 free meals and a free item for life. Once again, that's HelloFresh.com/Julian10FM. 1 per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as a discount on first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. So hit my HelloFresh link in the description below to get 10 free meals and a free item for life.
Do you think they were let go because they were starting to uncover this?
100%. They got too close. I think that this was kind of, it was brewing to get to this point for about 2 years. And then it kind of came to a head. But I also want to clarify that no one that was like let go and all of this was anywhere near the source of information that I got this from. Just want to clarify that because I feel like people might think, oh, but I think that these individuals were doing their job properly and got too close to something. I don't actually know if it was like this very story, but it could be. But it's like separate.
Yeah, no, I got you. I understand. And you also got to be careful, like.
But these guys actually like weren't my sources, so I'm just trying to like make that clear because then I don't want to see retaliation where it doesn't belong either.
Right. Have you heard from people, I don't know, connected to the situation, or have even heard things that you're on the radar of like CJNG or people there where they're like, we don't like what this girl's reporting?
No, I haven't heard of that yet. But as I was saying, that could change. Hopefully it doesn't. But because my reporting was very much like talking about the internal structure and how powerful they are, I don't think they at any point would see me as a threat because in public, I was kind of flaunting the muscles for them, flexing the muscles for them, right? Like telling people, this is the most powerful cartel. Right. This is the most violent cartel. They want people to know that.
Yeah.
But now this does not paint anyone. This story doesn't paint anyone in a positive light, obviously. And so this is the type of story that journalists could get flack from. Hopefully I'm exempt from that. Yeah. Who knows? We'll figure that out. But at the end of the day, I think that anyone who's part of this operation would inherently know that it's wrong, and I would hope so. I don't know. I can't comprehend it because there's truly no amount of money that could possibly ever make me understand like how you would do this.
I can't believe though. I understand that.
Like the drug trafficking, drug trafficking is very lucrative. I get it. Okay. Honestly, I get it. And I've seen videos of, I've seen $200 million in cash and oh my God, and we're bawling out. And it's like, all right, I get it. You want to be rich. This is so different than that.
What I can't believe, this is what's not clocking to me. I understand that business ain't a booming like it was like during the Biden years where, you could walk across the border and have a burger with the patrol while you're dealing drugs. I get it that it's not like that. But we're talking about transnational organizations that still are moving significant drugs around the world and into the United States still through other means, not even just through the border. Maybe their profits are down 5-10% or something, big whoop, over the last 7 months. They're that desperate because of that little of a lot, like a bad quarter,
but see,
that they're going to start moving infants that they cut out of women to make a few hundred. Maybe it's just because I'm a normal human being. I don't understand why that's the first thing they're going to. It's also the highest risk business, and you want to talk about something that if the cat gets out of the bag too much with the American public, that is the kind of thing that could lead to people in the American public being like, bomb the whole country. You know what I mean? And do shit like that.
Well, when I posted this story, that was the response that I got, and especially because of all the rhetoric that's been going on lately, and it's like my most asked question, like, should the U.S. invade Mexico? And I'm always like, no, but this is exactly the type of thing where it pushes that type of agenda. But which is why I think it's so important to keep mentioning the American part in this, like the role that Americans are playing here, because they are the buyers.
Right.
And it's different than drugs, okay? Because it's different than drugs.
You're addicted to something with drugs. It's different.
And you are, okay, you're buying drugs, you're injecting yourself, or you're smoking the shit.
Yep.
Okay, you are buying the baby a woman was, like, it's a fucking shit show. It is so different. And I think people will understand that. I don't really have to, like, hone in on that. I think it's anyone with half a brain would understand that. But I also think that there could be perhaps a power play here too.
Sure.
Where, they're filling some gap of monetary loss, but also someone who's part of this ring managed to put this whole operation together. And now look, put me in as your big dog because look at what I got going on. And that's typically how it works in the hierarchy of cartels, particularly in CJNG. Right. When you're proving that you can traffic like a boss or like make a bunch of money and you're not getting caught for whatever you're doing, that's how you move up in the hierarchy of the cartel.
This is one thing, though, that even if you look at the most cynical aspects of the history of this, where, for example, you have intelligence that's been involved in these organizations. I've had people sitting in that seat who had to go inside the cartels and allow them to continue to do business. This is one of those hardcore red lines, though.
Yeah, 100%.
That, like, I swear to God, if I found out that, I don't know, some fucking CIA idiot knew this was going on and was letting this happen.
Yeah, because this is not like, getting the arms to the Contras and moving the cocaine, and this is so different. But I don't know if that's.
I'm totally, obviously there's no proof of that at this point, but I'm saying, like, if I ever found that out, all the people out there who are like dismantle these places, I'm like, well, there's your argument. Like, how could you ever? And I'm not, again, hopefully they're not, but like. There just has to be a line somewhere. I'm sorry. That's just it's just like this one just made me so sick. It's just made me so sick. I don't know how you can even cover this because, like, you have to see it too.
Yeah,
you're
I hate it.
down there, you're talking to these people, like, makes me sick from my armchair up
It's
here.
definitely not ideal, but when I got the tip too, I was kind of told, like, you do a good job at covering missing and murdered women. Like, your reporting serves justice for, like, women and kids. And we talked about this, like, that's the goal here. That's what got me into it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I always say this, but I choose to do this so it doesn't matter how it affects me, because at the end of the day, what these women are going through is 100 million times worse than me just seeing it and reporting on it and maybe being in a risky environment to gather the elements of the story. But they deserve a voice, and they deserve people to fight for justice for them. And if I can in some way be the messenger to ensure that the people who need to take the action start to take that action, great. That's the goal. And I know that you always come at me about, like, well, Katarina, you need to, like, value your life. Don't die. Be careful. Yes, I know that. But at the same time, look at what the fuck is going on. And if I don't talk about it, and it means, okay, I'm going to be in danger if I have to, in order to do this, so what?
Well, it's very brave of you, but also...
No, it's not. It's just very human. I think that most people would do the same thing. I just go and do it. It's.
I don't think most people would do the same thing. Just
no,
to be very
I
clear
think
with
people
you.
do agree, though, if they had the capacity, whether that's, like, mental, physical, whatever
Sure.
it is, and a low fear threshold in order to try to help this matter, they would.
Hey guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It's a huge, huge help. Thank you.
I think you're giving a lot of people credit that I hope they could live up to, but I'm not sure if they would, because you go down into the belly of the beast with it. And that, like you mentioned going down there now, I mean, you said it, not me, but you are going down there, and
it's not safe right now.
it's not safe. The people that you said you could call within law enforcement at Juárez just all got fucking, Night of the Long Knives down there. What kind of, without revealing security details or something like that, but, like, are you taking some security precautions?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't, this is not something that I would, for lack of better words, raw dog, like I have with previous assignments, where I just, like, go into the belly of the beast and I'm like, hope for the best. My mom protects me from above. But, and, like, oh, I'll be in at this time and I should be out at this time. If not, call this number to whoever, right? But this is a situation where, because the stakes are so high in terms of the story, and it's a very dangerous region, yeah, I'm taking security precautions. The whole team, like, it's very much...
Oh, you're going on with a team too? Okay.
Yeah.
right,
we're
good.
not doing this alone anymore. We
Good.
can't. And that's also partly thanks to you, because, there's more exposure now. So I can't just go, like, incognito anymore, because
Right.
the people who are in these regions, who may be involved in it or who know about it, they watch my shit. So I don't want to take that risk, because also, like, another thing, and when we talk about the valuing the life, like, then if I die or something happens to me, then I can't do the job.
Right.
So that defeats the whole purpose.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm like, you're doing, and you like you and I were talking off camera in generalizations about stuff. So I think this is okay to say, but, like,
Yeah.
you're doing a great job, and that's awesome. And, like, even since the first time you were here, we recorded for the first time in October 2024. We put it out in January, but that was almost a year ago now. Like, you've come such a long way with the scope of things you're reporting on, and the sourcing and the level and the types of stories, obviously, that you're breaking, which is amazing.
Thanks.
But, like, you are, and I'm sure you already have, but you are going to run into situations sometimes where, perhaps because of your hard work, you get access to
to shit that I wish I didn't know.
Of course. And sometimes, as much as it might be, like, the biggest story ever, and it could also even help some people, it's the kind of thing where you have to make some long-term calls, not just for your own ability to still be alive and report on things that matter like you are right now, but also for, you know, sometimes you report on things, and I'll just use an old example, like El Chapo. He gets reported on, then he gets caught. And it's like, oh, El Chapo's gone. Well, now you made a fucking power vacuum, and it's a fucking mess.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, and that's the shitty reality. It's like, we're not dealing with a situation where the biggest story you look at is like, oh, I can cut off the head of the snake. There's fucking 40 heads to the snake.
Yeah, it's a
So
hydra.
what I'm saying is a long-winded way of saying, like, you're in a tough position where once in a while you may have to, like, say, hey, if I wanted to, like, poke the bear on this thing, I could, but I'm going to pass on this because it's better to live another day and actually, like, kill the other 10 bears over here with stories that I'll be alive to tell. You see what I'm
And
saying?
I fully agree, because there are things, and we've talked about this, that I've held off on reporting.
Yes.
And if, truth be told, if I had reported on some of those things that I held off on, and something happened to me because of it, then I wouldn't be able to report on this story
That's
where
right.
the stakes are really high and the collateral is really bad.
That's exactly right.
So this is so much more important, right? This is the mission where it's, okay, I've received some information because I've managed to embed myself with the right people, and gain trust on all sides here. And now the public can be informed about what's going on so that, like I said, the right people in power can do something to seek justice. Because that's the goal here, right? You have to tell the story for people to care, tell people why they should care. And I think that this is one of those stories, like, when I'm generally reporting on murdered women internationally, like, there's this level of empathy and compassion that we're getting from the American audience, because the majority of my audience is American.
Yeah.
But it's very fleeting. But then there will be, like, a case that, like this, that it really does tug on the heartstrings, because it's like, people now understand, even though this isn't happening in my backyard, like, as a human being, these are babies, these are young mothers, and these are American buyers.
Yeah, my backyard's buying it.
Yeah, my backyard is part of this operation, funding it. And so, to me, when I look at this story as a whole, of course, the people, like, evil villain number one is the ring that is running this operation and started this. Evil villain number two, the people buying it, buying the babies.
I agree.
And I just see, I hate having to, like, go into depth with stories like these, because then there ends up being some speculation. But I still, like, I don't get too in the weeds to impact my reporting at all.
What do you mean by that?
Like,
there's speculation with it.
Like, I start to think about what could be going on and stuff. But I think that because of the knowledge that I have in terms of, like, this whole realm of issues, I can, my intuition is pretty good. So I can understand, like, what could be the reality of the situation. I feel like I'm speaking in code to you right now.
No, it's fine. I understand.
So, like, for example, in this case, I don't think that the buyers are unaware of where these babies are coming from. And I just can't, like, seem to hit that home enough, because I feel like there needs to be American eyes on this.
Yeah, especially once you told me what the pricing is here and everything, and the fact that there's pricing on it, if you're getting handed an infant from some dude in a suit and handing him $100,000, and the infant has fake paperwork, you know everything. Fuck you. Even if you don't know exactly, you know.
It doesn't take a genius to get, like, a weird feeling.
Yep. Your gut, there's no way. Even people with a room temperature IQ, like, you know. There's no way you don't. And that's what makes it sick.
That's why I have a hard time believing. And when I first broke this story, I talked about that this could be illegal adoption. This could be human trafficking. That my source said, you know, some of these people receiving the babies may not know. Now, in my reporting, you know, I went through all of that. But then when you sit with the story, like, your perception changes on a story, especially of this high stake, when you first break it versus when you sit with it and really start to think about it. And this is the kind of story that like keeps you up at night, right? You're just constantly like thinking about it and thinking what could be going on. And the more that I thought about it and continue to think about it, I'm just like, I don't think that these babies are going to a well-meaning family who wants to expand their family and has been like dying to have a baby and like went through any means possible. I mean, sure, I know that some of the high volume international countries that were like top providers of like international adoption for the US cracked down on their adoption laws. And so parents who want to adopt, it's become harder for them.
Yes.
But I just don't think that these are the people who are, I don't know.
So it's, and that makes it, if that is the case and that speculation is even mostly correct, it makes it a pure productized infant human trafficking operation that on the other end includes the worst things, whether it be organ harvesting like we talked about earlier, or even sicker, twisted shit like that, to where these children probably don't even live past infancy, and those that do wish they wouldn't. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and it's only been going on for a few months, so it's hard to know like how long these babies are surviving after.
Do you have plans to try, when you are down in Juárez, any leads even to try to privately get a hold of potentially family of potential victims of this?
Yeah, but if it means putting them in danger, I won't do it.
You won't do it.
Even if it's like, oh, this really added to the story and it really gave context, I won't do that. Because imagine, like, you've already been through enough.
Yeah, 100. I don't blame those people at all. They're in a situation where anyone apparently in the government that would have helped them is now gone.
Yeah.
And that's a sign to them being told shut the fuck up if they didn't already know that already. They live in a country that's war torn apart by these cartels and effectively run by them at every level. And they have no economic means. They've already had one victim in the family. Like, if the average family is another 5 people, are they like, well, all 5 of us want to die too? I mean, it's people out there like, oh, how can you say something? Dude, put yourself in their shoes. It's not.
See, with this type of story, unless someone seeks me out and wants to talk, I won't push for it. Yeah. Because also I don't like, and a lot of journalists disagree with this and don't operate the same way. I don't care. I don't like having to convince someone, especially someone who's been a victim, to interview with me or to give the story. I don't think it's ethical.
You don't think it's ethical?
No. Because you're already, you're kind of, and I can be very like convincing with some people. It's like, come on, just tell me, or let's talk, or we can talk. But I don't want to do that to someone who is already like in a vulnerable position, and then it could make life worse for them. I've learned like a very good lesson with this type of thing over the course of the last few years, which is like, how do I say it? Like, even if you think that you can have a positive impact with whatever you're doing or whoever you're talking to, you still have to consider that it could have a negative impact.
That's right.
And if that outweighs the potential positive impact, it's better off just to stay out of it.
Where it gets weird, where it gets really weird from like an ethical perspective, if we're talking about this, is like, I can't even imagine having to answer this question if I were you, but like trade-offs in that position, meaning, okay, if I talk to this family of the victim or whatever, I hate that we have to talk like this, but just bear with me. There's an X% chance that something really bad could happen to them as a result of them talking. But if I do it, there's a Y% chance that this story blows the fuck up. Forget if that helps my career or not. I'm not talking about it for that. I'm saying
for like the actual understanding.
And
public.
then potentially it saves a Z number of future victims, which is a large number, and puts a cap on this. It's like,
no, the former still outweighs it, because
Yeah.
I was taught by like a journalist that I highly respect, if it impacts the person's livelihood or life, don't do it.
Can't.
And
Tough for me to argue with that.
I'll stand my ground on that. With a criminal or a politician, will I be like, come on, tell me? Or like,
yeah, that's different.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck them.
But if it's like a... but in this case, if it means that their livelihood or their life is at risk, I won't do it, even if it means like, oh, saving other people. I'm not going to get someone to play Jesus here. Like, this is not... No, we're not doing that. I would never want to put someone in that position because I don't want something bad to happen to them. Second of all, selfishly, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I would feel fucking horrible forever and ever and would not be able to live with that if that happened. There's just no way. Even if it meant like, oh, well, we saved 20 pregnant women.
You're
with
going to
babies.
think about the one.
100%. Because that was like completely my fault. So I would just never do that in the first place. I don't think it's ethical at all.
Are you, well...
That's why I actually don't like when some journalists will like go into these types of hostile environments and pay these types of people to talk to them. I've never paid for interviews because first of all, I don't want people to be like working, like putting on a show. And second of all, I think that for a lot of these people, yes, money is a very appetizing incentive. Like it's something that they need. And I think that that's a bit exploitative on the journalist side. I would never do that. It's like, if you're not going to talk to me for free because you want to get your story across, it's done. So yeah, could I probably go and find family members of these victims and try to convince them to talk with me or hand them a couple bills and say, talk to me? They would probably do it. I actually have no doubt that they probably would. I would not do that.
What if you just, this is probably too simplistic to look at it, but if you made him an anonymous source, meaning you didn't say like, I don't even know what effect that would have though, if you couldn't say it's a family of a victim. You know what I mean?
Well, see, like with anonymous sources, these are people who still understand, like all the people that I've spoken to anonymously, they still understand that there's somewhat of a risk. And also I have been very good at protecting these sources, right? But because this is such a vulnerable and like it's a victim, I wouldn't even want to take that chance with them. And also, when I'm talking to criminals or people within high levels of government who are giving me anonymous information, they're not going to go and be like, yeah, I talked to this journalist and told it, right? But these people might.
Yeah.
These people might trust the wrong person. And so it's not even about trusting myself at that point. It's, do I even trust you to protect yourself after we do this? I don't know. There's a lot of elements that go into it.
Yeah, there's heavy questions you got to ask at every layer of this. There's not like a moment where you're like, well, I can get... All right,
not easy.
Yeah.
Not easy.
Do you... Not even you. I would say that... Do the different sources in the know who you speak with, are they concerned about a copycat syndrome happening here with other cartels?
Oh, I haven't even talked about that. Like, I have no idea. I don't think so. I would hope not. But I also didn't think that this would ever happen in the first place. But
yeah, I mean...
that's a good question.
This is one scenario
that
where...
this becomes one of their means of...
I mean, that would be the worst case scenario. You would hope... that this would be like the one scenario that was like Al-Qaeda with ISIS, where Al-Qaeda was like, yo, we're not that bad. You know what I mean? Where like Sinaloa was like, all right, listen, we do fentanyl. We don't...
But we're not doing all of that.
We're not doing that. Like you would hope that this might be the one place it is, but unfortunately, all of these cartels have a track record of if it's, like, you know the quote, if it bleeds, it leads. Mm-hmm. Find another one where it says if it pays, it weighs, or whatever. Like they're gonna follow money, and if they see something like this making millions of dollars,
they're gonna follow suit.
Yeah.
I think that's why they're trying to nip this in the butt right now. Like it's there are people who are trying to put a stop to this
immediately
before it gets to that point. I would hope that it doesn't. But what the fuck do I know? I never thought that they'd be doing this in the first place.
Why all right. This is going to get to some politicization or whatever here. But even though this is brand new, it is brandly sick on every level. Now that it is a story and clearly based on what you've been able to say publicly, what you've reported on publicly, and I'll say this, what I've heard from you privately, very clearly is unfortunately legit and has legs. Why hasn't, like, Trump, of all people, who's declared the cartels terror organizations, why has he not talked about this yet? Or is this even at his desk yet? I mean, I would think this would be like he'd be tweeting up a storm about this. This is the ultimate, like, do you see why we got to kill all these people? Kind of referring to the cartels, kind of moment. Like, why has that not happened? You reported this, what, a week and a half ago? Something like that?
This is brand new, right? I just broke this story, and I think that for a bit, this was pretty need to know. I would not be surprised if in the near future that there is the administration makes some comments about it, and they whether they know about it already or not, unclear. Can't speak to that.
Yeah.
But that's certainly going to be coming. And I think that the reaction is going to be really interesting because in an ideal world, what I hope to see is, all right, we're going to collaborate to dismantle this ring, and then we're going to go after the Americans who were funding this. Unfortunately, I have a bit of a feeling that there may not be a hard push on the American buyers. I just feel like for some reason...
Why do you feel that way?
I don't know. I feel like they might miss the mark a bit with that. And like, to preface, I'm always critical of like any, politicians or how policy is run. I just think that it would be like this massive upset. And maybe I'm just worried because also with these types of stories, I start to really think deeply and stuff like that. And I'm like, I hope that whoever is buying these babies also faces whatever
the firing squad to start
prosecution, from the U.S. administration.
Yep.
And I mean, at the same time, to be fair, there has been like somewhat of a crackdown on Americans who are profiting off of or funding the cartels. Like we saw it recently. I think we talked about this in the last episode that we shot together about that American family from Idaho who was buying the stolen crude oil. Yeah. So then boom, they're like facing justice system. Great.
That's oil though.
I know.
These are people.
Yes. And I mean, to me, these charges would look like aiding and abetting and like literally cooperating with a terrorist organization. Like if you are an American and you bought this baby, your court case should reflect exactly what you were doing.
100%. And if you are a part of an organization that's doing the trafficking, it's even on a whole another level, meaning on the American side here. Because I think it was Ed Calderon when he was in here. It was very broad. I want to try to, if I remember some of this incorrectly, people put it in the comments and I'll draw attention to it. But he was saying the largest black market in the United States is human trafficking, which includes everything. It includes, human trafficking is human trafficking, but, more low-level prostitution and things like that, but it also graduates all the way up to the sickest things like this, of which he was saying, he's like, why are we not talking about the fact that stuff is way more rampant than we're comfortable talking about at dinner parties? Like, why are we not talking about that at law enforcement centers as much? Why are we not doing something about that? Because he's like, to your point as well, he's like, a lot of the people on the other ends of these say they're not from other countries. Sometimes they are. But like a lot of times it's people that live in
your
this country.
backyard.
Yes.
Yes.
And that are from here and were born here.
But also, this is a very scary topic. And you want to know what's funny? For the longest time, people asked me a lot, why don't you cover the human trafficking stuff? And I actually said for a really long time, I was like, I'm never going to cover human trafficking.
Why'd you say
because I'm
never?
scared. It's scary. Like, it runs so high. There's always so many people involved. The operations are typically like very airtight, professional, and there's so much money involved that I was like, I'm worried that if I do something like this, that this is where I would face some sort of like violent retaliation, or like I would face threats. So when this story came to me, I was like, I guess never say never. Fuck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's brave. It's brave of you to do it, but it's someone does have to do it, and has to draw attention to this stuff, and that's what I'm saying. Unfortunately, it takes the most salacious, worst examples really hitting home for the entire scab to be opened up, you know. And so all these other things that are happening as well in the human trafficking department that involve the cartels, and more specifically though involve people here on the other end running it and buying it and doing that, in order to draw more attention, that you have to do something that makes people go, whoa, like that's here.
I know.
And maybe something like this, if properly bullhorned, and we're doing our best here to start that, you know, maybe that could draw the attention. The worst part about human trafficking is, to me, or what, I mean, there's a lot of worst parts, but one of the worst parts is the pure psychological capture that legitimately happens to the victims. So in this case, an infant actually isn't a good example. I'm talking about people who are older and can talk, and, you know, whether that be an older child or even an
Young
adult.
adults, yeah.
And it's like, you know, for example, how could someone get on a commercial flight with their trafficker and not say something to someone? Because they're completely psychologically brainwashed and tortured and threatened under the control of that person, who is a sick, total sociopath, to the point that they can be emotionless and not react and seem like everything's cool, that they will get on that flight and pretend that they're the wife or the daughter or something and go along with it. And I don't think people appreciate enough how much that can happen to anybody. This isn't like, you know, well, some people are going to be more likely. No, like, if you get in that type of situation and they know how to threaten you and poke just the right buttons to get you to the point of absolute fear and surrender, that's what's going to happen. And unfortunately, it happens all the time in America.
Yeah. I mean, it's very easy to invoke fear in someone who's emotionally vulnerable and take complete control of that person. I mean, even you think about it, like a good example of this, it'd be like in your personal life, if you think of any like sort of toxic relationship you've had, whether that's romantic or friendly or with your family members, where it's like, this person scares me and I hide things from them and I don't know what to do. And when I'm around them, it's like you freeze, right? But why do you keep that person in your life? Because you're being like emotionally manipulated.
Right.
So imagine someone, you include drugs in that mix, you include money, you include sex, you know, the whole fucking gauntlet of what encapsulates human trafficking, and it's run like a business, and then also violence. How do you expect people to get out of that? Or to ask for help? Because these people are being told that you ask for help, I am all knowing and I will fuck you up and your family.
And you know what really, and you're fighting the winds of this right now with any story, let alone this one, what really doesn't help right now is when you have a story like Epstein so out in the open.
I know.
Where, you know, he was just his own sadistic fuck, and all the people who hung out with him, they're fine. Don't worry about it. And his victims, who many of whom are just incredibly brave and have spoken out for years about this. In many cases, there's a lot of women who've spoken out for years. They continue to, and it's sick because it feels like they're screaming into an abyss. And yet we are all also aware of it. We all hear it. Like, everyone knows the Epstein story. We know it's all bullshit.
But it's literally gone to a point where people are desensitized by it.
Exactly. That's my point. And it's like you're desensitized not only by what happened, because you've talked about it so many fucking times that it's like, oh yeah, right, the guy that women and little girls. Yeah. Like, that's sick that even gets to that point for some people. But it's also like you're desensitized by the lack of justice, and you're like, oh, I guess if you're powerful enough,
That's just how it works.
that's just how it works.
Yeah, which is another reason why, like, I was like, I'm never covering this shit because it will not change anything. If anything, it will just do harm. Because people are like, yeah, we know it happens. It's scary. It's really bad, but there's no justice that comes of it. The people who are involved in it run really high up the food chain.
Yeah.
What is little old me and you going to do about that?
Now that you have begun to cover this story, though, and really look deeply on this, have you, in the course of your journalism and reporting, learned more about the other types of human trafficking tactics that are actively being used by the cartels in general, be it CJNG or other ones? Like, what other rackets are going on right now?
To be honest, a lot of it is mostly like prostitution, and then like kind of enslaved prostitution is what I would call it. I don't know if
That's nice.
You always laugh at the worst. Enslaved
I'm not even
prostitution.
laughing. It's just like we're throwing around these terms like it's
Completely
like it's a dictionary, and
demonetized.
it's like, no, that's fine. I'm just like I'm demonetizing this episode myself. Like YouTube's not going to I will demonetize this. Like, it's sensitive subject matter, but it's like, oh, enslaved prostitution, that's better. Like, that's almost like where we're at with this.
There's a really good series on Netflix. It was done by a production company run by 2 female journalists, and it's called Zona Divas, and it basically takes you through how women were being brought into Mexico by some really powerful businessmen with, like, you know, criminals. And I mean, synonymous, right? And then they're being brought in from like Venezuela, Colombia, into Mexico to work as prostitutes. They had to, quote unquote, pay their debt, which obviously never disappeared because they were like being offered work. So it was like, hey, you want to come and make a bunch of money? We'll pay for your flight. We'll pay for your accommodation. You start working as a prostitute. You pay us that back. But obviously over the course of that period, you're incurring more and more debt. And then a lot of these women kind of started to band together and they wanted to go independent. Then they were turning up dead. And so this, to really understand, I think, how this human trafficking works, starting all the way from South America up into, you know, Central, North America, you know, the whole gauntlet. That's a really good series. And it was done by some incredibly reputable journalists that I really appreciate.
What was it called again?
Zona Divas.
Let's pull that up.
And
give them
that
some love.
was the name of the page where you would go and solicit these prostitutes. It was shut down, but it still exists under the name VIP Boutique.
VIP Boutique.
Bougie, right?
I mean, it's modern day, even more fucked up indentured servitude. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
If you know the history of that, like this is worse, but same concept.
I have like a big problem with this type of stuff because I feel like this is like hot take, but in like the US, Canada, whatever, there's been like this movement to really be like, sex work is empowering and freeing for women. But then when you're in my line of work and you're seeing like just how enslaving it is, it's really hard for me to buy that notion. Right. Because these women are like dying for it. They're being impregnated. They're like forcefully, they're being beaten up. They're literally like their physical health completely deteriorates. Oh, yeah. It is actually the most complete opposite from empowering in any sense. And so I always kind of want to bring that up when I talk about this because, yeah, like, I don't know. It just bothers me. So the human trafficking and the sex trafficking, this has always been a thing. And these girls are brought into Mexico from like Colombia, Venezuela, very top countries for that. Brazil. And then a lot of them are even sent into the US. A lot of them work in Mexico City. A lot of them work in border towns like Tijuana. You'll see, right? Go by the Hong Kong. And then, like I said, they have to pay this debt. they're really not making much money. And then if they want, like what this series shows is these women who tried to go independent because they were making money, you know, they had their own clientele list. The men in charge were like, kill her, she's done. And most of these guys who are responsible for that, they're free.
That's the least surprising part of your story, sadly. But, you know, I believe in your freedom to make decisions about your life, and I believe in free speech very strongly, right?
Makes two of us.
Okay. So I think if you want to go start an OnlyFans or if you want to be a porn star, you should be allowed to do that. And if you want to go, which, by the way, there's a whole, obviously, dark side of the porn industry where it's literally human trafficking.
It's so bad.
Let's focus on the not side of that, where someone just freely decides to do that and, you know, whatever. And you want to sexualize yourself online, and other people are free to watch that. It's part of free speech. It's a negative, but, you know, I think you can't draw the line anywhere with free speech is my point. That's fine. That said, though, you mentioned a few minutes ago in another context desensitization that happens in society, and then how other things carry the ball downhill from that.
Yeah.
Especially, let's pick on OnlyFans and that whole culture and whatever.
I fucking hate that shit.
Yeah, I've never been on it. And I never will go on it. I don't understand it. I don't understand how a guy can go on that and think that there's any sort of connection with this person. But then again, there's guys who are falling in love with AIs. So
yeah, I mean,
you know, I guess whatever floats your boat. But that culture and that desensitization plays into the lack of, I guess, what's the word? Like the lack of outcry and, you know, we need to solve this type of situation that pervades hearing about even trafficked prostitution rings and stuff like that. People are like, oh, yeah, well, you know. Like you see what I'm saying? There's some sort of like desensitized tie that kind of turns people's brains off where they don't realize just how serious that stuff is because they're so used to just seeing ass and titties online.
And my like opinion about this, outside of being Katarina the journalist, but just Katarina, is I think that overt, open sexualization and perversion has like further enforced this notion that like women are sexual objects. And like if you go to a strip club in Mexico City and these girls are like giving blowjobs, it's like, fuck yeah, who cares? There is no sense of understanding of where that all started and why that's happening, because also we're just constantly being fed sex all the time. And it's just like so blatant. Like I open social media and first of all, I'm always getting comments. I will literally report on something like this and someone will fucking have the audacity to comment and be like, do you have an OnlyFans? Or when's the OnlyFans coming? Yeah. So that's what you get reduced to as a woman anyways. Okay, so first of all, slap in the face. But then second of all, it's like you're just constantly being fed sex in a way that it's like you don't, it's not even natural anymore. It doesn't make sense. And then that, I think, perpetuates violence. This is like, obviously just, this is outside of scope of my reporting, but I've seen it too in my reporting and in talking with women who are victims of sex trafficking. Yeah. Whatever, forced sex labor, whatever it is that they're doing. And none of them are happy. And I think a lot of men fail to understand that. She does not want to be there. I can literally guarantee you that. Even if she tells you she does, even if she's happy with your money or, you know, makes you feel whatever type of pleasure, no woman wants to do that. I could put my life on that. And I personally know people, of course, as we all do, who do OnlyFans or have done this, whatever, outside of like the monetary gain, all negative impacts. There's nothing good that comes out of that. I understand, and I can understand being in a situation where you feel like that's all you can do. And I'm not vilifying any of these people, but it has completely changed the public perception of sex, sexual violence, and then sex trafficking. So then when you have these women who are absolute victims to the core, they're not even being viewed as that by the public because everyone is so fucking desensitized.
Yeah. We talked a lot last time in episode 313 when you were here, the second time you were here, about CJNG and some of the background and the rise up there. So if people want to get all that, you can go back there.
And we talked about Sinaloa too, I think.
We did. But as far as like all the backstory, I don't want you to have to regurgitate the whole thing. But they are particularly alarming, not just because of the story you're now reporting, which is a whole different level, but because of the speed with which they have gathered the power and size and scope that they have. You know, I think it was with you, we talked about like the... Well, what was it? Maybe that was actually with Johnny Mitchell, actually. We talked about the basically kill camps they have set up.
Mm-hmm. The extermination camps?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did talk about that. The Rancho.
That was okay. So you and I both.
I'm
did
pretty
that too.
sure. I've talked to so many people about
it's
this.
all
This was
blending together.
the story, where they tried to make it seem like these were recruitment camps, but
exactly.
really they were these like extermination camps where people were forced to go there. And I actually, tying this all together, would not be surprised if some of those camps were being used for organ harvesting. And I know that there is an NGO that's lobbying in Congress that those camps were actually being used for organ trafficking.
Now,
but let's take a break because I have to pee so bad.
Okay, we'll be right back. All right, we're back. The thing I was going to ask right before we went to the break was, first of all, CJNG and Sinaloa are in like a war right now.
Well, okay, it depends which faction we're talking about because...
All right, let's break this down first.
There's technically like 3 factions of the Sinaloa cartel. You know, it's very fragmented at this point, but let's talk about the main ones, which is El Mayo's faction and El Chapo's faction. We've talked about this on a lot of episodes, but essentially, because El Chapo's faction or the Chapitos, his son's faction, seemed to be really struggling with this infighting, this civil war that broke out following El Mayo's kidnapping and, you know, him landing in the U.S. last summer. Mm-hmm. The Chapitos seemed to be struggling. CJNG, Jalisco New Generation Cartel, aligned with the Chapitos, basically saying, we're going to help you guys win this infighting. If that means then, you know, we have access to trafficking routes and whatever financial gain that they can get out of it once the war is over. To me, when I see something like this, it's telling more a story of absorption, like I said, than being like, we're going to help you win this. And then when you do win this, you guys are CJNG.
Right.
There's only one, you know, kind of head honcho left within the Chapitos faction, which is Ivan, one of El Chapo's sons. And from what I can tell and from people who I've spoken to in the U.S. government, that is the guy that they want to get right now. Like, if we were to put, you know, make a list of all the most wanted, whether that's, you know, El Mencho, Ivan, Archibaldo, Ryan Wedding, whoever it is, I would say Ivan is the top of their list because that means that they have essentially fully dismantled the Sinaloa cartel. Now, the issue with that, and I keep going over this, is that means that CJNG will essentially have power, or at least this is how I foresee it, in Sinaloa. CJNG right now, I would say, has power over all of the Mexican states. Sinaloa is a bit iffy, right? Because it's being called publicly an alliance, and we have seen videos, and I'm being sent stuff all the time, where you see these CJNG guys fighting alongside the Chapitos in the mountains. You know, they're shooting and
Fighting alongside.
Mm-hmm. They're going after El Mayo's faction. They're working together, but it seems as though there's obviously a broader agenda here, and that's to completely absorb that. The Sinaloa cartel, that faction of it at least, which would probably extend into all of it. And I think that this is like a perfect example of that, like the Hydra, right? You cut off one head and two more evil ones grow back, because if that means CJNG is like the all-powerful cartel, knowing just how violent they are, that's a very, very scary future for Mexico and for any like innocent people who have to live amongst this. Now, I'm sure a lot of people would say, and I understand this, is, well, when there is total control and there's no fighting over territory, we're living in peace. Yes, but that doesn't take away from the fact that there's still so much violence going on, and there are so many people who are being targeted by the very cartel that is in power.
At the same time that this is all going on, though, because like people sometimes, and I'll speak for myself too, we get lost in when we talk about El Chapo's sons, because there's multiple scenarios going on. Obviously, El Chapo's in ADX. His other son, Ovidio, is in U.S. custody, and
he's cooperating.
He's cooperating. He is allegedly the guy who helped put together the El Mayo sting.
Yep.
Right? But you have Free, another son, Ivan, who's in the middle of this whole hot war, whatever you want to call it. Ovidio and Ivan, like what's... Obviously, they're not in communication, I guess, because he's in prison. But are they coming at it from different angles, or are they both working on the same kind of team here?
I'm sure they're working on the same team.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't talk to Ovidio and Ivan that often. But I'm not exactly sure what it looks like. I know that Ivan is essentially constantly on the run. Like, I don't think his life is great right now. Ovidio is openly cooperating, and then like 17 of his family members were led into the U.S. Remember, we spoke about that last time, which I thought was so ridiculous, negotiating with terrorists, right?
What is literally now? But like, what is the like? What do the cartels back in Mexico think of his cooperation? Do they think it's a part of?
He's a rat.
Yeah.
He's a bitch and he's a rat.
Yeah.
Of course.
But they support Ivan, even though that's his brother, and they get along.
Well, anyone who's under the Chapitos faction is going to just continue to work for whatever faction they were already under.
But they may think they're working for rats.
Yeah. I mean, there's not going to be any respect for that. And who knows what Ivan is telling these guys, right?
Well, that's also, you think about it, if anyone were ripe to be recruited into another faction, it'd be the guys that are a little...
on edge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not to mention one of the individuals who was put in charge from CJNG, who was put in charge of this whole alliance. He goes by El Jardinero, the gardener. I'm not sure if I spoke about this last time.
You didn't.
But he basically, they call him El Jardinero because he's like to make the mountains flourish and, the whole thing. But he has a very loyal following within CJNG. And so this is, I think, why their absorption of power also works very well, because you see like this really strong sense of loyalty and like, I don't know, like patriotism for the leaders of CJNG. And of course you see that for Mencho, but then you also see it for like right-hand men. So like El Jardinero is one of them. He has a very loyal and strong following to him. And so this is also a very powerful and violent person who now is in charge of this alliance and would likely spearhead whatever this alliance could potentially eventually turn into. But I think that when it comes to like the respect for Ovidio, I mean, just look at any criminal landscape. No one is going to support someone like that.
That's what you would think. Yeah.
And I think that's why his family was able to come into the States, because if they stayed there, they would be dead. I mean, look at El Mayo. He's saying, I'm not talking because he has a lot more to lose. He's got a bunch of family in Mexico still.
What's the latest on his case, El Mayo?
That he pleaded guilty to counts of drug trafficking. I don't know the exact ones. I think it was like 2 counts.
Yeah, we can pull it up.
You can pull up the exact details of it, but pled guilty to that. His lawyer publicly said that he's not going to be talking. He's not going to be giving any names. Like El Mayo's not going to be cooperating. And the thing about Mayo is he actually always was known as like this like man of his word, like like traditional like values. So
Values.
like, you know, in the landscape of what we're
understand
talking
completely.
about.
It's just funny.
I know it is because it doesn't add up, right?
Exactly.
But he's saying he's not going to talk. Do I believe that? I don't know. And a lot of people have been asking me this lately, and it almost just seems impossible for him to not talk. Let's see.
Oh, Joe's got it up
No,
here.
can you search up El Mayo, please?
Oh, Mayo.
Plea deal?
Yeah, that's it. Co-founder of Sinaloa Cartel, Ishmael El Mayo Zambada Garcia, pleads guilty to engaging in a continuing criminal enterprise and racketeering. This is August 25th, 2025, from thejustice.gov. Ismael Zambada Garcia, also known as El Mayo, 75, of Sinaloa, Mexico, pleaded guilty today to being a principal leader of a continuing criminal enterprise, the Sinaloa Cartel. The cartel, one of the most violent and powerful drug trafficking organizations in the world, in addition to a racketeer influence and corrupt organization RICO charge. This foreign terrorist committed horrific crimes against the American people. He will now pay for those crimes by spending the rest of his life behind bars in an American prison, said Attorney General Pamela Bondi. Today marks a crucial victory in President Trump's ongoing fight to completely eliminate foreign terrorist organizations and protect American citizens from deadly drugs and violence. Today's plea is a proud moment for the FBI and its partners as the founders of a notoriously violent drug trafficking organization, one that engages in an array of illegal activity, including murder and corruption, face the consequences of their actions, said FBI Director Kash Patel. Yeah.
So something really important to note here is that he's facing life, right?
Yeah.
Mandatory minimum or whatever it is.
He's not looking too good either, so yeah.
Yeah. Oh, like, don't put that in.
No, it's all right. That's fine.
So he was kidnapped and brought to the U.S. So he was not sent to the U.S. under the U.S.-Mexico extradition treaty. That treaty exists to essentially extradite criminals, Mexican national criminals who have committed crimes against the Americans, like it said in that press release, right? None of these fugitive transfers. So let's talk about El Mayo. It was obviously a kidnapping. Then there was a bunch of guys who were transferred in January. That included Caro Quintero, who was accused of killing DEA agent Kiki Camarena. And then just most recently, a week or two ago, 26 guys, right? Modern day guys. You're not talking about the old capos anymore. All of these people were sent to the U.S. without the extradition treaty paperwork. The extradition treaty paperwork and the agreement, essentially the crux of it is to avoid the death penalty. So none of these guys, if they're being extradited, the death penalty is off the table. Why? This is a rhetorical question that I'm going to answer. Why were all of these individuals sent to the U.S. to face the justice system, not under the extradition treaty, and yet none of them are getting the death penalty? Because the U.S. is looking for information. They don't want these guys dead. Because when Caro Quintero was sent to the U.S., I very openly said, he's not getting the death penalty, even though he could have, because they weren't sent under the death penalty. And I had people say, of course he's going to get the injection. Of course he's getting the death penalty. Why would you do that? Like, this is an oracle of information.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And then it came out just a few weeks ago. None of these guys are getting the death penalty. Most of them are getting life. And that's so much better, right? And then Ovidio, he's probably only going to get like 10 years or something.
Now, what happens at the end of those 10 years? Is he going to stay here?
In the U.S.?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. You think Buddy's going to go on back to Culiacan and live it up?
So we're going to let him stay here. El Chapo's son. He's going to walk out of prison. He's going to live in Westchester County, New York. I don't know if that's where he's going to live. But
I'm getting more like Riverside, California vibes.
So we're just going to let that happen.
Probably. I mean, you guys let his family in. I think 17
Oh, you
family
can say
members.
you guys because you're Canadian. Hey, you're here as our guest. That's nuts. You would think they'd deport his ass and just let the wolves have him.
Not if he gave them a bunch of invaluable
If
information.
he gives them a bunch of invaluable information, congratulations. Your prize is you don't get life in prison. Now figure it the fuck out. Like,
Well, what did you say last time? Crack a few eggs to get the shells?
crack a few eggs to make an omelet. But I'm saying the omelet's already made. We already made the omelet. You got your 10 years. You get to be out. Go, run, be free. It's, you know, like in the movies when, like, the guy in a prototypical movie, when they, like, nurse the animal back to health. Oh, my God, go, be free. And they let it go. And then, like, a fucking falcon eats it. Like, let that happen.
Yeah.
You had your chance to run away. If the falcon got you, you're not good enough.
Boss up.
Why does he got to live here?
So
His dad's already buried in ADX, which I'd rather be dead than be there.
you don't think it's nice?
ADX? That's where they sent that guy, Andy caught. Oh, yeah.
There's no like jacuzzi and golf carts?
I don't think so.
Okay, so listen, this is where this becomes very problematic because President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico has obviously given the U.S. this wide open backdoor to prosecute these criminals, right?
Yeah, how is that relationship going?
Do that
with this whole
again.
thing?
Publicly, well, clearly, publicly, she keeps saying we're going to maintain Mexico's sovereignty. We are not allowing any U.S. intervention in terms of dealing with this whole issue.
And she's like, right back here.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
That's horrible for a podcast because no one who's listening
Yeah,
could
but if they were watching, I made a move. Like, yeah, just back it.
just
park it over
shut
there,
up and
behind
get
that
the
car.
fucking
Behind that car.
hop in.
Nothing to see here, people.
That's what's happening. And so that's why these guys are being transferred. They're being called fugitive transfers or expulsions. They're expelling. They're not extraditing. They're
like that
expelling
term.
these guys.
Yeah.
That's why that's happening without the extradition treaty.
Mm.
But she's saying, no U.S. intervention. But here, you can take them quick. Just
Right.
right before nobody looks, you know?
Right.
And then also there are, like we talked about this before, and it's just so shocking to me how openly those U.S. intelligence planes are flying over Mexico.
We don't do that. There's no U.S. intelligence planes down there.
Bro, I have it on my Twitter.
I know. They're getting awfully careless.
Yeah, to the point where I feel like it could disrupt the integrity of whatever investigations they're conducting. Because if
Intelligence? You think they're conducting investigations? They're not the investigating type.
whatever intelligence they're gathering to be handed over
Okay.
to the investigators
Got it.
to clarify.
Right.
And so essentially what I think though, when we look at how the US is negotiating with these guys and sort of giving them, oh, have life, give us information, we can bring your family in, don't worry about it. And you know what, you Ovidio, we're just going to put you in timeout.
That's nice.
It's a slap in the face to any American who has obviously like lost people or whose lives have been affected by the fentanyl crisis or like the drug crisis. On the other side of that, anyone who was a collateral victim to cartel violence in Mexico. Because I think for a lot of them, I remember when Trump first declared cartels as FTOs in January, and I spoke to so many people and such a broad variety of people in Mexico and from across all regions, and everyone was like, finally, someone is cracking down on the bad guys. And then in practice, that's not what's happening.
It's not.
No. I mean, not if you're negotiating with them. Do you think it is?
All right. I
Yeah,
don't...
there's like a crackdown, but it's not what like people really like the substantial crackdown they thought.
So you think, and I'm not saying this like to be funny or overgeneralize, but
I think they should have got the death penalty.
with that logic, because we're not chopping their heads off literally, and instead we're just bringing them here and putting them in a cell, it's not the same?
Not at all. I'm a firm believer in capital punishment.
You are.
Especially for someone who has done something inherently, objectively wrong and cost the lives of thousands of people.
Yeah.
People come at me for that all the time. They're like, Katarina, how could you? How could you not? You see half the shit that I've seen and you would be a believer too.
No, I understand what you're saying. I just think that the jump, like in your mind, the jump, and I understand why you're cynical about it, but the jump from being so cynical as to like, well, they're not doing that at all because they're just bringing them here. I mean, they're taking to defend it, they're taking the pieces off the board, they're extracting information from them, and they're giving them no future, with the exception of a video. I don't like that, but.
Right. At the same time, I do understand that. It's like, okay, they're getting information. They're going to get trafficking routes, and they're going to gather information to perhaps tackle more individuals. Truth be told, I don't think any of these efforts are going to have like any lasting impacts.
Why?
Because this is like this perpetual beast that will always continue to grow and find new ways to adapt to whatever tactics law enforcement or the US or whoever is using against them, or to try to figure them out, or to try to dismantle them or hinder their operations. Everyone always asks me, like, what's the solution? There is no solution. So
why do you cover it? If there's no solution, why do you cover it if it's not going to end ever?
because wouldn't you also want a job with job security?
That wouldn't be in my top 1,000.
I'm joking. That's
Yeah, I
not.
know.
Yeah, I'm being facetious. The point is that because then you look at the other stories that like are like the women in Juárez story.
You feel like you can help limit the damage?
That can be, you know, there needs to be a stop to that. But in terms of being like, we are going to dismantle every single cartel that we have designated an FTO, it's just like so out of the realm.
You know.
And then also, like, what's the real agenda here? Because then you look at, like, Venezuela and how, like, the real target here is Maduro, and they're using this whole, like, FTO designation to really just go in and, like, drone strike them.
Yeah, it's interesting. That is interesting. I'm not saying he's a good guy, but that is an interesting backdoor tactic for sure.
Yeah. It's so much more beyond just, like, what we see. This is not a black and white topic.
Yes.
It's very nuanced. And so that's why in terms of like discussing solutions or like, will there be an end? That's so beyond my comprehension. And this is what I literally live and breathe all day long. Yeah. So there's no way to simplify this whatsoever.
Where is, with your story, like where's Claudia Scheinbaum with this? I would think this is the kind of thing that she would draw attention to if she's not owned.
No.
Why not?
Because this is the type of story that she would probably bring up in her morning press conference and say, unless there's proof, unless Katarina can show me who's killing these women and who's buying them, it's not happening. Because I think that the missing and murdered women problem in Juárez should have been declared a national emergency. I think something like this should be declared a national emergency.
Yeah.
And we know it is happening, but she doesn't want to bring that negative attention. I think the only way that she would perhaps address it or like really kind of hammer down on it would be about the American buyers. Because she also, you know, big proponent of the fact that like a majority of arms that are used at Mexican crime scenes come from the US. You know, there was that whole lawsuit. Yeah, the whole thing.
Yep.
So that if she's like, oh yeah, our cartels are providing it, look who's buying them.
That's what
Those
I'm
are
saying.
the real villains. She would say that. And like, yeah, I agree to an extent, but I'm not entirely sure that she would want to accept like what's happening on the southern side of the border.
But like the whole country, and she knows this, the whole country thinks and knows that the fucking place is run by these
cartels,
violent
shadow
organizations fighting each other and buying off politicians and killing the ones they don't like. You would think that you're constantly looking through, and I hate to put it this way, but you're constantly looking through, you know, a trove to find a piece of treasure that you can say, oh my God, if I put this one out there, people can't ignore this. You know what I mean? Something that's so bad and so beyond the realm. Like you say to people, look, they're selling all the drugs to Americans. And the average Mexican goes, yeah, whatever. But you go, look, They're killing your own pregnant girls and selling the kids, and Americans are buying them. That's like and you shouldn't look at it this way, to be clear, but like if you are trying to sell something politically as like, can we please look at this? What the fuck else? How are you going to get something more serious or better or horrible? You know what I mean?
Well, we'll
than
see
that?
if she says something about it. She brought up my reporting, I think, once before, and it was like, show me proof. And I was like, okay.
Hit me on Telegram, bitch. You were saying though a little while ago, right, when we were going to break and we got off it after we came back, but they might be doing like even organ harvesting at some CJNG.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, though, like, because that's another story that I've been sitting like thinking about for a while, right?
Okay.
And when it first broke, it was like all the news and everyone was talking about it, and there was a lot of speculation around what was happening at these camps, who was running it, why authorities weren't like deeply looking into it and investigating it the way they should. And then also the mothers who had found it and brought it to the public attention were vilified by the cartels and the Mexican federal government, saying essentially that these women are making this up and they're sticking their noses in places that they don't belong. Super bad, okay? But now, sitting on this story, it's like there were so many personal belongings there. We talked about that last time I was here. And there were like no bodies. There was some indication of human remains and ovens that people were being burned in. But if I really look at it now with hindsight, it appears as though that this was like an operation for, organ harvesting. The training area was very rudimentary and certainly not what I had seen in other CJNG like actual training camp sites. So, and the people who seem to have been victims there and some who were survivors, like their testimonies, it doesn't add up to you're going to come here to become a Sicario and fight for us type of thing. So yeah, this goes very deep. And so those sites, that site, the Rancho Seguirre in particular, tied to CJNG, and now these infants are also tied to CJNG. So clearly there is no limit in terms of what they're doing to run their business. And that's very worrisome. And it also worries me too that it's like, okay, yeah, the US is cracking down on the whole cartel thing, whatever, but we're not seeing much of a crackdown on CJNG. We're seeing sanctions, visas being revoked.
Oh, that's nice. We're revoking visas.
Woo, what a feat.
What a win.
Yeah, but it's not like, no one's being kidnapped like El Mayo was, but I guess it's kind of like one step at a time. But I also don't think that like that El Mayo capture was even like the best, because then it led to so much fucking fallout in Sinaloa. And like I said last time, really feel for those people.
Why don't the thing I keep thinking in the back of my mind is like this whole power struggle between at least aspects of Sinaloa and CJNG, who's the new bad boy in town kind of thing, where they're just trying to eat everything around them, and they're fucking crazy and doing insane rackets that are sick even by cartel standards. Why aren't people who are actually truly loyal cartel members of the Sinaloa cartel using their contacts, even if they're corrupt contacts, to get some of this information inside baseball about what CJNG's doing back, so that they can get their enemy off the playing field, like get them cracked down on. You know what I mean? Sick the fucking cops on them. Like, why aren't they doing that? There's so much to work with here.
Okay, could be happening, right? But then also at the same time, with the amount of leverage that CJNG holds, who is going to have the balls to go and try to fuck them over? Because I feel like you go and try to fuck over CJNG, you get fucked double. Let's look at it realistically. Look at what they're doing. I mean, if you can still kind of work business as usual and you kind of have, their blessing to keep operating, you're not at war,
Right.
Just lay low.
Right. I got to think at this point, someone like El Mencho, I don't. Who would be more wanted than him in the world?
Maduro.
Yeah, I don't think Maduro has the power he does.
Yeah, but they like want him bad.
I know they do, but I'm saying like literally, I forget what they want and who.
Like let's talk about the characters here.
Let's put chess pieces on the table. Mencho runs CJNG, the fastest growing disease in Mexico, the most powerful cartel somehow already, doing the most insanely sick things that we've seen cartels do ever, which again, once again, that's really saying something.
Like after Los Zetas, for sure.
I mean, he's got to be the most wanted person on earth.
I mean, I don't
He should be.
Yeah, I mean, he's up there for sure. Yeah, he's like a fucking like mythological figure at this point, because then you always have these rumors too that is he dead or alive or what's going on.
Is he just like living in complete hiding in the hills or something? Obviously, they have no idea where he is, but
yeah, I think so.
you would assume this guy's not living in the fucking middle of Mexico City.
No,
Right.
I think it's definitely it's probably gonna mirror like the whole Bin Laden situation, some compound, you know.
Yeah. No, I would assume that's probably about what it is. It's just like, what about the fact that we've declared them FTOs and now maybe Shine Bomb's letting some people in through the back door? Have you heard any information about, I don't know, U.S. intelligence having more resources to try to find someone like this? I mean, it's like finding a needle in a haystack, but
If you track where those intelligence planes are flying, they certainly have their sights set. I just don't think that they have the support of Mexican forces, or the government rather,
to take out El Mencho if they got him?
or whoever it is, whether it's like El Mencho or Ivan or Wedding. Ryan Wedding.
Yeah, we'll get to Ryan Wedding.
Yeah, because he's up there too.
Yeah, they wouldn't have the support of the Mexican government to take out El Mencho. That seems...
I'm sure that El Mencho, I mean, look how long he's gone without being captured. I don't think there's probably a single person who's not received something from him.
Right.
To ensure that he's pretty untouchable. So do I think that there are people who know where he is? Of course. But I think that would be a really a big bloody operation.
Something like the operation you're reporting on, though, with the infants being stolen from the pregnant mothers and them killed. Is there any way that something like that would be happening within CJNG without having the blessing of El Mencho personally?
See, I don't know. I was thinking about this too. It's very hard to say. I honestly don't know. And I asked a few people that question. And I don't know if he knows that's going on or not. That's really hard to say. And at the level it's happening, where it's like just like the dozens, I say just, but like that's too many for what this is. But it's hard to say if he's in the loop about this.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure. And like a lot of people are unsure about this. So yeah.
What's the leadership structure around him like? Do we know anything about it? Like, do we know other players, like who the number 2 is, who the number 3 is?
Yeah, and I talked about El Jardinero. He's definitely up there. There's this another guy sort of emerging. They call him El Yogur. I think we talked about this last time.
El Yogur.
Yeah,
I don't
the
remember
yogurt.
That. The yogurt. I feel like I would remember that. I don't know if we talked about that.
Isn't that such a weird alias?
Yeah, that's not what I would want to be called.
Me neither.
Like if I had worked that hard to rise up to the top of this organization, call me like the Bat or something like that.
The Bat?
Yeah.
Like the Batman?
Yeah, no, like the Batman. Yeah.
I'm thinking like the Bat, like the COVID Bat.
Yeah, or like Batman, something like that. Don't call me Yogurt. Like that's kind of gay. You know what I mean? Like, hey, Yogurt, get over here.
It's like really like the shittiest alias possible.
Yeah.
But he's fucking powerful as hell.
not powerful enough.
So
but
the understanding and knowledge surrounding who's high up in the CJNG hierarchy, it's quite known. And it also became more clear with this CJNG Chapitos alliance, because then right-hand men were sent out to certain regions to conduct these operations and to make sure everyone was playing ball, right? So that became very clear. Now, do I think that there's really focus on these right-hand men? No. And there certainly should be more, because if at any point in time Mencho dies or Mencho gets taken out, I think it's more likely that he dies than he actually gets captured. Yeah. One of these guys is likely going to take over.
Right.
And I wouldn't be surprised if one of these guys is even more violent and takes it to the next level. So those sights need to be set on who is the potential next kingpin and what they're capable of. Yeah, sorry, I can't get over how funny you, like the yogurt thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. But like that's also been a criticism of some of the strategy that seems to be playing out with Trump post like FTO designation, where he's going like the kingpin strategy, so to speak. Because again, it's like you're cutting off one head, but there's 40 heads.
Yeah, and then there's so much collateral damage that comes out of it, which is just, that's what pisses me off. Because it's like, oh, we got Mayo, now everyone go figure it out for yourselves. Fight amongst yourselves. Doesn't matter who dies in the process. It's like invasion without the invasion.
Yeah. Now, Sinaloa has still been doing like a lot of shit. I saw you put out a video where they were dropping like 20 bodies off a bridge or something like that.
Oh,
What was the story there?
Infighting is not, I don't know, because I see the bodies all the time. I'm not exactly sure which one.
You don't know which body? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's literally constant. And I know that influencers lately have been targets of major attacks. I'm not going to be able to find it amongst all the piles of bodies. Yeah, but influencers lately, or people with like heavy online presence, they're like really facing the brunt of it, because a lot of these people were heavily aligned or laundering money. We saw this happen with El Macabélico, singer, rapper.
Okay.
He
pull him up? El Macabélico?
He was just sanctioned by the US for giving 50% of all of his revenue from Apple's streaming to the Sinaloa cartel.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
You saw that, right?
Yeah.
And then all his stuff was removed on Apple Music and stuff like that. And I can only imagine like who's next in this realm, because this is another thing, right? People will also come for like these artists and be or YouTubers or whoever it is.
Yep. There
saying,
it is. Treasury sanctions Mexican rapper El Macabélico over alleged cartel ties. Treasury said Ricardo Hernandez Murdano, who goes by the stage name El Macabélico, is a narco rapper associated with the Cartel del Noreste. His concerts and events are used to launder money on behalf of the organization, according to the Treasury, which said at least 50% of his royalties from streaming platforms, there it is, are sent directly to the cartel. Fucking crazy.
Yeah. And so when I posted this, what a lot of people were saying was like, Peso Pluma's next, Fuerza Regida's next, like all these really famous figures. And it wouldn't surprise me. And whether they're doing it out of, I want to make more money, or it's forceful. Either give us revenue, streaming revenue, or you're dead. And we've seen violence against artists like this since the freaking 80s, for a long time. I mean, like Chalino Sanchez was the notorious case of this, where, he gets the note. You've probably seen it. He's on stage, he gets the note, wipes the sweat and sings, and people say that note was a death threat, that if he kept singing.
Yeah, that's like a famous meme.
Yeah, it's universal at this point. Everyone knows it.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of funny though.
A lot of artists are very much become targets of this because they have access to so much money, and they have access to so much money laundering potential. So,
to say nothing of cultural influence, by the way.
Oh, yeah, that too, of course. And I talk about that all the time. I get a lot of heat for that. People say, like, it's not like that's the music isn't the problem, and the cultural influence, like, it's not a thing. It certainly is.
Sometimes, yeah. Read the lyrics are Sending a message.
They're always sending a message, whether that's consciously or not, right? People are absorbing that, especially people who are in positions where they may be considering joining this life, or they're already surrounded by it, or they have access to being a part of this. Yeah. And it promotes like a sense of like it's like patriotic to a sense, like
yeah, I see what
loyalty
you're
to
saying.
this cartel
Yep. National anthems, if you will.
for the shadow government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no shortage of fuck-uppery. Like, there's always some other angle where they have control. Like, we all talk about the government. We all talk about law enforcement. We talk about the military. We talk about the context in the United States. We talk about the organizations who support this and Biden on the other side of the United States. And then there's always a new estuary where it's like, oh, by the way, yeah, they got that too. You know, that's where your idea of like, you're not going to end this shit. Cynically, it's like,
Because they aren't like
agree.
drug cartels anymore. This is an organized crime group through and through, a foreign terrorist organization working internationally, and the financial means go so much further beyond drugs.
yeah.
Obviously, which was the headline of our conversation. And hopefully the story that continues to go out there, because that goes so much more beyond fentanyl.
What's the latest with your home country, though, and the implications of the cartels? I know you've been reporting on that a bunch. Obviously, Canada, you were one of the first people to talk about some of the fentanyl centers there and how that was going down. And
And everyone was like, bullshit.
And then it was totally true.
Yeah.
What was it? They're like, you were the one who told me about the guy who was like, yeah, we could stop maybe 1% of it or something.
Oh, like they check less than 1% of everything that
that's it.
comes into the ports.
So what's the how
So-
is this all blowing over to there now?
What came up the other day? Something came up the other day in our there was like a bust, I'm pretty sure. But the key here is that our border czar said, I have no control. Pardon?
Tom Homan?
No, Canada's, because
Canada's,
Canada
right,
followed
yeah.
suit with U.S. because of the whole tariff threat. So we implemented a fentanyl czar and a border czar. Canada's border czar said, I have no power over law enforcement or like the border, like CBSA, which is like our border patrol. So like, don't look at me. Like I literally think he said like word for word.
It's like a South Park episode.
And it's like,
so
I'm
not
just,
in my department. Okay.
and I just thought that was so ridiculous because, you know, now that I did all this reporting and then the administration came out saying, oh yeah, you know, it's all coming through Canada, whatever. And then a lot of people were like, especially people who didn't follow me from the beginning were like, she's pushing like Trump's agenda. And it's like, no, I was saying this like, actually, no.
Trump's agenda is, if in this case it's like stop drugs, that should be everyone's agenda.
Yeah, I agree.
It's fucking crazy.
Duh. But anyways, so there was this case, Upinder Singh. He got picked up by DEA.
Upinder Singh. That's not a Mexican.
No, it's not. And I had been saying this, and they called him Thanos because he was like collecting all the, I don't know, like, is that Avengers or something?
It's one of them.
Yeah,
But
so-
they're calling him Thanos.
Yeah, does Thanos collect the stones or something? Yeah.
Joe
so,
says yes.
Okay, I don't know. I only know Black Widow.
I know he collects the stones for his.
Yeah.
And so Upinder went by Thanos because he was basically conducting a lot of the transnational relations, basically, you know, collecting stones like countries. So he was the one in charge of essentially communications between Canadian organized crime groups, U.S., particularly California-based organized crime groups, and the cartel, and running all the precursors and the fentanyl and the meth between all three countries.
How was he doing this? Like, what method? Do we know sources and methods here?
Trucking companies, the ports. Yeah, it was mostly land and, you call it maritime? No. Yeah.
No, that's right.
Sea? Land and sea?
Yeah.
So, yeah. That was what his whole thing was. And then DEA got him.
Nice job, DEA. Love that for you.
Gold stars for you. And so this was actually like really tied all my reporting together, because this is what I had been saying, that these South Asian gangs based in Canada had been operating with the cartels and building these relationships since prior to the legalization of marijuana, because BC Bud was the best marijuana, and Canadian organized crime groups, particularly South Asian ones, Brothers Keepers, United Nations, and not the United Nations that is the international organization.
Yeah.
Well, you said that last time.
I wouldn't put it past them, but
You said that same thing last time.
I'm just saying.
You were like, the United Nations?
Yeah, listen. Hey, that's where my head goes.
So basically, he was conducting all of these operations, and some people in organized crime have told me, no, he wasn't. He was not the big dog. But in terms of a DEA Canadian, DEA RCMP collaborative capture, this to them was like their big dog capture. But as we know, or as I perceive, a lot of the times when we're getting these press releases or getting this information of we got the head honcho, or we hit this huge drug bust, or we stopped this at the border, it's very much blown out of proportion. And I can really validate that, because any time that I have reported on something like this, I get messages almost immediately from sources within organized crime being like, oh, Katarina, for fuck's sakes, this doesn't even touch the surface. Okay. I'll tell you who the real players are, or you know who it really is. Yeah. And so, but at the end of the day, it tied in what I had been saying. And it further showed that whatever efforts that have been implemented since I started reporting on this last year until now are not really effective. It's all still going on essentially business as usual. And it doesn't help that our border czar said, well, I don't know what I'm doing here. I have no power.
Canadian thing I've heard in a while.
Actually, can you pull that up? Canadian border czar.
I almost want to see him saying this.
Canadian border czar says, I don't control RCMP. It was something like that.
I hope he said A while he said this. I don't control that A.
We don't even say that.
Listen,
when have you ever heard me
dream.
say that?
I've watched enough South Park. That's what they say.
Yeah, see, Canada's fentanyl czar.
We don't have a video of it.
So Sam Cooper,
I have no authority.
Sam Cooper is a great Canadian crime journalist.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Well, you weren't lying. All right, so Ottawa's newly appointed fentanyl czar told U.S. officials in Ottawa he has no authority to influence Canadian federal police or border agencies, according to an official with knowledge of the relevant meetings. For U.S. enforcement experts, the admission underlined what they describe as the emptiness of Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney's high-profile pledges to crack down on transnational fentanyl production and trafficking by Chinese and Mexican syndicates, and underscored systemic failures in Canada's response to cartels exploiting the nation's ports, borders, and infrastructures. Ottawa's response this year to President Donald Trump's threat of fentanyl interdiction tariffs and making them the 51st state, including the high-profile czar position, promises to join cross-border gang task forces, and pledges to strengthen border security, has been described by U.S. and Canadian enforcement sources as largely performative, lacking both real authority and the baseline cooperation with U.S. counterparts needed to address Canada's vulnerabilities.
So imagine the border czar being like, yeah, I actually don't have any control over the border.
Oh, yeah, here's what he said. He said, quote, listen, I don't have the RCMP I don't tell the RCMP what to do. I listen to what RCMP, CBSA, and other police services have to say, but I have no authority to direct them or ask them to do anything, one U.S. source recalled.
So imagine if Tom Holman said that, people would be like, so what the fuck are you doing here then, right?
Go clean the bathrooms. Like, get the fuck out of here.
But this, it didn't even really make a dent in like the Canadian public perception of what's going on, which sucks.
Yeah.
Again, like I've said before, there's been like the fentanyl overdose death crisis in Canada is really, really bad. And so this isn't just some like hee hoo hoo topic. It has actual implications in the livelihood of a lot of people and the lives. So essentially, there were these very performative actions that were taken by the Canadian government, I think significantly more than by the Mexican government, to appease the U.S. That did absolutely nothing. Perfect example here.
Politicians being performative, I've never heard of it.
Who would have thought?
Yeah. So they're, in your opinion then, based on the fact that there's no organization here whatsoever north of the border out over there in Canada, we have our own problems here, obviously, but up there as well, like they're totally,
It's
Emperor
business
has
as
no
usual.
clothes.
Yeah. And any of my sources in Canadian law enforcement, they're always kind of bitching to me about it. They're just like, it's the same shit.
And it's growing now.
And it's growing.
Yeah.
We have no resources. We don't have the manpower. They don't want to look into shit. They don't even really want to cooperate with the U.S. Like, we don't even know how to stop this. And these are some guys who have so much intel and information, and they can't do anything with it.
Right.
And I can imagine that would be very frustrating. And then I can imagine it'd be frustrating when you have me. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm going into the fentanyl lab run by the Chinese and the Mexican cartels and the Indian guys in Canada. And then everyone being like, lies. Doesn't exist. And then Canadian law enforcement is literally calling me and messaging me being like, oh my God, yes, we've been saying this. And nothing is being done.
So it's safe to assume then, minus the obvious immediate concern that more Canadians are now, I mean, fentanyl death is rising. It's a huge problem that's increasing, and that obviously is a terrible tragedy for the population. But it's also safe to say that because of the success of the labs that the cartels have been able to establish over the last few years they're establishing a lot more, and they're doing it with impunity.
Yes, 100%. Exactly that. Mic drop.
Like, where are they doing it, though? Like, in the foothills of the mountains, or are they doing it, like, in the back of the 7-Eleven?
It's in a lot of, like, farmland regions where there's, like, large properties. It's also in suburban areas where it like a typical trap house. And that's been happening for a long time in Canada. Is that not?
You have those in Canada?
Yep, trap houses.
You got trap queens, too? Joe, like what I did there. God damn. Get your shit together, Canada.
Yeah, I agree.
We got to get our shit together here, to be fair. But, like, really, come on.
And it's funny because when you ask me about, like the capital punishment, and it's like, yeah, we do not have capital punishment in Canada. And so anytime I say, we got to bring that shit back because you have, like, child predators just walking free 3 days after they like 10 girls under 14, people are like, how could you say that?
Yeah, this is one of the, and I understand your perspective because you see the worst of the worst, and you see the so clearly guilty people. If you're talking broadly about capital punishment, the reason I have been against it is because, we got the best justice system here in America, but it's got its flaws like everywhere else, and it falls short sometimes, and there are an inordinate number of people. It's not like 0.1%. It is more than that. There are people who are found guilty of crimes in bad cases where they didn't do it, and they're on death row, and a lot of times they've gone to their death and been killed. And like, the other side of that is, I'm like, dude, if you get sentenced to life in prison, I think that's almost worse because you don't know how long you're going to live. Your freedom's completely taken away. I mean, if you're sent to somewhere like Supermax, you'd rather be dead every second of every day. The issue there then also becomes, though, it's like cynically, you're like, oh, so our tax dollars are paying to keep them alive.
And you just get to like live kind of in safety. I mean, I understand the nuance to it, okay? And I know that a part of me, like in the heat of the moment when I'm covering really tragic cases, I'm like, just kill this person.
Right.
And I know that that's not good, okay? But I've seen so many cases go without justice.
Yeah.
particularly towards just vulnerable victims, that I'm like, are you kidding me? And especially in Canada, it's such a problem because then we have catch and release. Like, you know, you bring the guy in, oh, he did this horrible thing, he's back out on the streets. And
Didn't you just point out one of those where there was a catch and release? What was that? It was really sick.
It was really bad. Oh, the guy, no, this wasn't a catch and release. The guy, I think in Nova Scotia, which is like the east coast of Canada, who murdered and cut up like a teenage girl, and then he went to jail for, I don't know, a couple, like some years, and now he's out in the public.
Out.
Yeah, I said that like a Canadian actually just now, but yeah, he's out.
Oh.
But see, that's
a disgrace.
But see, that's what I mean, and I
a
think that also like evokes like a really strong emotion in me where I'm like, well, fuck, you know what? If we're not gonna even lock him up, like just end it, right?
Right.
So that's where that's coming from. We're seeing just like injustice after injustice. And that, of course, still exists in the US. But I think that the level of like impunity and lack of oversight in Canada and Mexico has made me more passionate about it after seeing so many time and time again. And we talked about this in the first episode of that little girl who was beaten to death by her stepmother. And I was just like, that traumatized the fuck out of me. How many times do we see this shit happening over and over again? Like, how many times am I going to be on your show and be like, it just keeps getting worse, right? We started with that little girl, and now here we are talking about young pregnant women being murdered for their babies to be sold to Americans.
No, I hear you completely, and like the hypocritical side of like an argument with mine is that I see a story like Cain Velasquez, and I'm like, good for you, bro. And I'm sick that didn't he get sentenced to like 5 years in prison or something for that?
Yeah.
Just fucking crazy. Because like, but again, like that guy was obviously guilty. You know what I mean? And then it's like, what about another case where the person's not? And that's where my other argument comes in, the initial one I had. And I'm like, fuck. But, you know.
Yeah, in a
Cain
perfect
Velasquez,
world.
for people, he was the UFC fighter who tried to kill the guy who sexually abused his son. And
Yeah, it was 5 years.
yeah. And like, shout out to him. But please go
Honestly, yeah. I forget what I was going to say.
ahead. Sorry. Yeah,
No, but that is... Oh, in an ideal world, that you wouldn't have people facing that type of capital punishment that are, you know, innocent, or that there's like any morsel of a doubt. But also in a perfect world, you wouldn't have criminals walking freely or living their lives with any level of normalcy after having ruined someone's life.
Right. There has to be
I
an
don't think
enormous
that's
price
fair.
to pay.
And I think that when you increase the price, you disincentivize the crime from happening.
That is another,
Because in Canada, the crime rate is really bad. Like random stranger attacks, violent ones.
You've mentioned, though, several times today, a guy that you and I talked about off camera, and I want to get to some of the other things you're going to be doing here, which I'm really psyched for you. I think it's going to be really cool. But you keep talking about Ryan Wedding.
Yes.
Who's actually a story I'm very, very out of the loop on. But
And a lot of people are, which is ridiculous to me.
Tell people who he is.
Okay, let's pull him up, because Ryan Wedding, Canadian Olympic snowboarder.
He went from the slopes to the other slopes.
To the other slopes, who is now a drug kingpin operating in Mexico and very, very well aligned with the Chapitos faction of the Sinaloa cartel.
How? How did this happen?
Yeah, okay, well, let's...
Yeah, there he is. Former Olympian, wanted for running transnational drug enterprise and ordering several murders, added to FBI's list of 10 most wanted fugitives. U.S. Department of State offering a reward of up to $10 million for capture. Former Olympic snowboarder and Canadian national Ryan Wedding, 43, has been added to the FBI's 10 most wanted list. Achille Davis, the assistant director in charge of FBI's Los Angeles field office, announced today during a press conference in Westwood. Adic Davis, that is what it's called, was joined by law enforcement partners with the United States Department of State, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Federal Policing, the Los Angeles Police Department, the DEA, Los Angeles, and U.S. Attorney's Office, Washington, D.C. Ryan Wedding, whose aliases include El Jefe, Giant, Public Enemy, James Conrad King, and Jesse King, was born in Thunder Bay, Canada, and competed in the giant slalom snowboarding competition during the 2002 Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City, Utah. At present, Wedding is wanted for allegedly running a transnational drug trafficking network that routinely shipped hundreds of kilograms of cocaine from Colombia through Mexico and Southern California to Canada and other locations in the United States, and for orchestrating multiple murders and an attempted murder in furtherance of these drugs crimes. Wedding's placement on the top 10 list marks the 535th addition to FBI's list of notorious. Okay, I don't need to read that.
Yeah. So essentially, this guy, he comes from Thunder Bay, which is in Ontario, Canada, on the East Coast. And Thunder Bay has always been known kind of for, it has a crime problem, a drug problem, but it's small. And he then allegedly went to Colombia, like after his Olympic career, got in with some people, started drug trafficking, just went full, let's see how we can move this product, was so good at it, went to Mexico, and the Chapitos were like, you're really good at this, let's bring you on. And he's very well protected by them. Now, source of mine in organized crime, criminal source, not trust me, bro.
Oh, is this a guy we were talking? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I like this guy. He's funny.
Yeah, me too. It kind of scares me, but I feel like that's what he wants.
Yeah. Hey, look, you got to get your sources where you get them.
Yeah.
But anyway, source of yours.
Has told me just how violent Wedding is. So what he will do is fly out like to Mexico, Chinese businessmen and Chinese people or anyone really involved in the drug trade and be like, you're going to work for me. We're going to use your trucking company, or you're going to put up some sort of shell company to launder our money. And it's not a question. It's a either yes or he literally yes. Incredibly violent. And so what I've been told as of most recently, he's not in very good standing with the like Chinese organized crime group because he killed someone in that group who was not supposed to be killed.
Is this someone that like
exclusive
that like Xi knows about that kind of thing? I mean, he knows everything from that country.
It's possible.
It's possible.
I don't know.
Okay.
And so, but Wedding is definitely up there in terms of the transnational drug trade, but he's so under the radar. I mean, even you were like,
yeah, I'm totally unfamiliar.
He's someone that people should certainly like. He's one that would go down in history.
Is he operate like you explained it? But is he based out of Colombia,
Mexico,
and then dealing with the people in Mexico?
Based out of Mexico.
He was at the beginning, but like the way when we were talking earlier, why did the context sound like he's in Colombia?
Because
now?
He started in Colombia and then moved his way to Mexico. He made the right contacts. He's really good at what he does. And his right hand man, Andrew Clark, was just arrested. And apparently he's singing like a canary to the DEA.
Ooh, let's pull this up.
I hope we can say that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's public information.
No,
so.
that's not. That he's singing?
Well,
that's
worldwide
Katarina
exclusive here on Julian Dorey Podcast. Another one. Co-leader of transnational drug trafficking organization arrives in the U.S. to face federal narcotics and murder charges. This is February 28, 2025. An alleged leader of a transnational drug trafficking enterprise co-helmed by former Canadian Olympic snowboarder Ryan Wedding has been sent to the United States from Mexico to face federal charges alleging that he ran a continuing criminal enterprise, committed murder and attempted murder, and conspired to possess, distribute, and export cocaine, the Justice Department announced today. Andrew Clark, 34, a Canadian citizen who was residing in Mexico, was arrested by Mexican authorities in October 2024 and is scheduled to be arraigned on Monday in United States District Court in Phoenix on charges contained in a 16-count superseding indictment out of the Central District of California. Alongside Wedding, Clark allegedly controlled a billion-dollar drug enterprise with supply routes that transported ton quantities of cocaine from Colombia to Canada by way of Mexico and Southern California. From March to August 2024, Wedding and Clark allegedly conspired with others to export, possess, and distribute more than 1,800 kilograms of cocaine. In addition, using a network of virtual currency wallets, oh my God, Wedding, Clark, and their co-conspirators transferred approximately $250 million
Yeah.
That's insane. From April to September 2024, in one day, investigators seized more than $3 million from one cryptocurrency. Well, that's a lot less than $250 million. I mean, where the fuck is the rest of it? But I mean, so this could potentially be like the
This is gonna be
Sammy the Bull to John Gotti.
Yep. This is the guy. This is our guy. And I know that the US wants to get him really bad, and I have heard that Mexico isn't really cooperating with this, not because they don't want to, because they just simply don't really see him as a threat.
Why don't they see him as a
I
threat?
don't know, but this is what I've heard.
I mean, they picked him up and they gave him to us, right? It said the Mexican authorities arrested him in October, right?
Clark, not Wedding.
So you're saying that they're not helping on the arrest. They helped on this guy, but now they're not taking Wedding seriously.
This is what I've heard.
God, that's so confusing. Like, that's literally got my brain twisted. They helped with this guy. He's the number 2. And now they got the big honcho who's got, like, by the way, the headline power. You know, that's not how you should look at it, but Canadian fucking Olympic snowboarder.
I know, and that's why I don't understand why he isn't like, people are like, holy shit, this guy, because what the fuck?
What a name,
So
too.
I'm actually working on like a whole rundown of Ryan Wedding for my Substack, like to really, so people can like really, we're going to do a whole life timeline with a lot of exclusive information from people who actually worked with him at a certain point in time. So then you guys can be really locked in and understand how he went from one slope to another.
Do you have to watch?
I'm like scratching my nose too as we're talking about this.
Yeah,
like,
listen, that's all right.
is she his consumer?
No. But do you worry about, obviously the guy's very bad, but you're getting to people who have beef with him. So how do you sift through reporting like that and figure out what's obviously real about him, which is a lot, but
Yes.
also then figure out what other stuff other people might have done that they try to pin on him because they don't fucking like him? Like,
Yeah.
how do you do that?
Well, that's what I'm trying to navigate right now. And obviously it's not easy, but it's a matter of talking with multiple people in this atmosphere. And then, of course, there are certain things that I will report as this is a rumor and this is what I'm being told. But there's a lot of stuff that I can confirm that's very interesting, especially in his case. I think generally, as a person, this is just very interesting.
Yo, of course. How does he get, like, how do you go from that?
I think he's just too smart for his own good. Like, he's a very smart guy, like,
He is.
and very powerful. I also think that he has a massive ego.
Well, that goes without saying. Yeah.
A massive ego. And it's just really funny because I was talking to someone about this and I was like, well, 2 Canadians went down to Mexico to, talk to the cartels, but we had very different motives. Me and Wedding.
Oh, yeah. I
That took you so
I was
long.
putting together the guy they arrested.
Oh, at Clark.
Yeah, Clark. I was like, why do they have different motives? Yeah,
Yeah.
that took a minute. Sorry.
It's okay.
God, what an idiot.
Third and last time.
Oh, man. But does he have family still in Canada? I imagine.
Yeah.
Have they talked to anyone?
Not
Do they
that
disown
I know.
him?
Well, I'm trying to get in there. And he's what?
No.
And he's got a wife and a son and so
In Canada?
No. Not in Canada.
Okay. All right.
Mexican. And so your facial reaction is throwing me off. You need to show that. Like in
Joe's
Canada.
on it, bro. He's going back and forth. Yeah.
So he's got wife, son, Mexican, and then he's got, the girlfriends throughout.
They always do.
They always do. Yeah. Some real baddies too, if you ask me.
I mean, he's a powerful guy.
Yeah. Money talks.
Money does talk. But like native family in Canada, brother, sister, mom, dad. I mean, they're not in the drug trade. But you're trying to.
Well, you can read about it on my Substack, Julian.
You're working on it. Right.
Working on it.
Okay.
Head in the grindstone with this one. Because it is
are they
really
embarrassed
interesting.
to him, I take it?
You can read in my next book.
God damn it. You can't give me a little preview, like a little piece, because we're going to plug what you're doing as a big story with all this and the new thing in a minute. But
I want to have all the ducks in the row for this story before I really talk about it and get into it because, again, like there's a lot of pieces here and I want to tell this story in the most fleshed out way possible. So yeah, we'll see.
Okay. Now you've been doing the show with Ironclad now for some months. It's great reporting. You're putting out a ton of stories all the time on the ground. It's been I think it's been really good content for you to get in a flow with your reporting and getting it to the masses because it's consistent. 20 minutes on the ground. Sometimes it's showing you literally working with sources and stuff so people can see that. Obviously there's a code of anonymity as to who you're talking to, but you know, I think that's all great. But now, you know, you started this whole journey going down there and covering the cartels in particularly and getting all these stories and getting entrenched across the different factions of the cartels in Mexico. But now, as I understand it, you're going to be expanding your scope and doing Ironclad's going to be backing you to do some full-blown, in-depth, sometimes like hour-long documentaries around the world, covering all different types of organized crime. Is this? Did you always want to kind of expand to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
I always wanted to do international coverage, and it's of course not easy, not simply just logistically, but also understanding context and nuance of the regions that you're covering, and then acquiring sources and making sure everything is valid, right? So with Borderland Dispatches, the coverage really picked up some momentum and people really seem to like it.
Yes.
And so then, and Ironclad is really great because they very much support my journey as a journalist in terms of how I like to tell these stories, and they are very much about that raw, honest storytelling and the high stakes storytelling. So I was like, you know what? Why don't we take the coverage international? And the support is there. And so now, especially seeing how transnational all this crime goes, I'm hoping to take the viewers along to tell this story again, super unfiltered, boots on the ground, and show you as if it's from your own two eyes what the fuck is happening and how people are running these operations. And then hopefully try to get some other coverage that I feel like is very polarized in the media as well. So
Like anything
Gaza.
in mind?
Yeah, because I've actually had so many people comment to me about that and be like, where do you stand? And what do you think about the coverage? And that is a good sign to me. Like, it's a terrible situation.
Of course.
But to me, it's a good sign that people feel like they can trust me with going and telling that story. And it's going to be honest and it's going to be solid.
One like that's really hard to do, though, because they're not letting in journalists.
Right. So that's why you have to find a way, because those stories need to be told.
Yeah. Well, be
Because
careful.
if you, with the amount of tragedy that's going on, what you can't do is keep press out. It's a pillar of democracy.
Oh, I totally agree. Unfortunately, they've done a very effective job of
I know.
not letting them in. It's a disgrace. It should be, and it is being called out internationally. Obviously, we're talking about Israel not letting in the press to Gaza. If you got nothing to hide, there's no reason for the press not to be there.
I agree. There should always be free press
100%.
in every area and crevice of every region. So, you know, that's like an ideal one, right? Because I want to, I want to go and get the coverage where there's stories to tell and people don't have voices or platforms.
Which means you're looking beyond the obvious point here. You're looking beyond just organized crimes organizations, of which there's many stories that you're going to tell, but you're looking at things where there are
that will stay.
Where there's tragedy, and where there is another form of crime, by the way, where governments are doing things that are fucked up, and you know that's you just got to be very careful, because I mean, you already do a very dangerous job. It's not like it's kind of hard to get more dangerous than you are right now, but especially going around to new places you've never been before.
Oh, it changes the game entirely.
Oh, yeah.
But, Yeah, the organized crime coverage will stay because I know that people appreciate that. And of course, that's what I've been locked into for the longest time now. But I think that beyond the content that I cover, a lot of people also appreciate the way that I report. And so if I have an opportunity to go and cover these types of stories and regions with the style and hopefully grit that I have when I go there, yeah, I would really like to do that. So we're looking to take the coverage international.
That's going to be great. Are you going to do, if you do this full Substack thing on wedding, is there a story you can go get documentary-wise? I don't know if it's like in the middle of Mexico or whatever, where you can put something together on him too.
I hope so.
That would be cool. It'd be really cool, by the way, if like you were able to put something together that's great, that educates and obviously entertains people along the way, that then results in something happening too.
No, that's not my goal.
I know that's not your goal, but I'm saying like if your actual reporting as a journalist, getting the story, here's what it is, information comes out, then eventually leads to good things happening.
Tangible change?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. I thought you meant like I put out the story and then they captured like the Ryan wedding.
Which would be some tangible change.
I
mean,
don't want to
something like
die.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that is what I hope. And that people, what I like is when people are very critical and they're staying tuned into global affairs and what's going on, even if it's not happening directly in their backyard.
Yes.
People need to care and be compassionate. There's such a lack of that, and it frustrates me. So that's the goal here, to keep people informed and critical.
All right, well, keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks.
It's been really cool to see you really increase the scope of stories you're doing over the past year, and
Thanks,
now
I'm
it's gonna
excited.
it's gonna take a whole new level. So we'll have Ironclad link down there. Also, when that gets up and running in a month or two with the new stories, just let me know and we'll stick that link in there as well for
Okay.
people, and we'll have all your socials. I know you're constantly putting out information on X, sometimes on Instagram too, so people can follow you there. Mm-hmm. Anywhere else? Substack?
Substack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's about it.
All
Don't
right,
go anywhere
Kat.
else.
Well, thanks for coming in short notice to go through this. It's a really
I'm glad that you brought me on for this story because this was one that needed this.
it is where we can give a bullhorn to stuff like that to get people's attention. We will do it.
I
So
appreciate that.
When you have those, you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right. Everybody else, you know what it is. Give it a thought. Get back to me. Peace.
Thank you guys for watching the episode. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and smash that like button on the video. They're both a huge, huge help. And if you would like to follow me on Instagram and X, those links are in my description below.